have an opportunity here to provide leadership, support, and a voice to the voiceless. The sacrifices that we made during our service do not end here. We carry on. We push forward, and we give hope and inspiration through love, community, and support. Stay free.
Rights and freedoms in this country are absolutely everything to me, because I personally know the sacrifice required in order to get them back once they're gone. So when my brothers and sisters call Stand 2, be sure I'll be there.
Legacy media will play their games, right? Like, this isn't about this or that. This is about freedom, period.
The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. Brothers and sisters in uniform, whether you're a police officer, military, check your hearts. Look where we're going. Man, wake up. I beg you.
If the veterans can't stand up and get a message across to the government, I don't know who can. I don't know. But we're going to give it our best shot. And I think we have a chance to win this and do it. But we need your help. And we need you to come, and we need you to stand too. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk again soon.
Got a sunburn to peel the daggers off your tongue. Young and dumb, I'm rotting like a bed sore in a cold case that's never gonna be more than scratching at the walls while you're waiting for a bullet to come. All along I've been treading in the deep end, throw my mirror in the cupboard for the weekend. Try and put together pieces while I'm dreaming, but nothing's adding up to a thing but a hole in the head. yes, they rob and sold out to the merchant shelves. Minutes after they took out from the bottomless pit, my head was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Oh, have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. Got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Oh, have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. Got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs. It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs, redemption songs.
Hey, what's up, troops? Jeff Evely, the magnanimous Gen Xer male. I'm back with you now on this 31st day of January, 2024. Great to have all the regulars on board. As you can see, I am doing the noon hour these days, or, well, I'm giving it a try anyway. This was something I discussed with Jason Levine there when I was on his show last week, and we're trying to deconflict schedules and stuff like that. We'll see how it goes. Let me know in the comments what you think of the new time slot. I really appreciate the regulars. So your feedback is always welcome. And we got a great show lined up for you here today. Before I get into it, I'll go ahead and say my good mornings as usual. Island Jason was first one on the board this morning over on Rumble. He says, or this afternoon, I guess. Depends on which part of the country you're in. You see how confusing this gets. And he says, good morning, 07// good morning to you, sir. And Shiloh is with us as well. Says, won't be late today. Will be a good episode. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, it's my pleasure, bro. Thanks for being with me. And RJ Sawyer says, "Hey Jeff, I had to look up conflagration. Thanks for keeping my vocabulary on its toes." Well, it's my pleasure, bro. I do my best around here. And Sergeant Schultz says, "I am not here. I am not awake. I was never born." Well, fair enough. Some of us, well, I think you're the only one in that boat, but it's all good. And Canada Veritas says, "Good morning, y'all." And also, I like the new time slot. Okay. All right. And Island Jason is also saying this is a perfect time. Okay. Well, that's good to hear, folks. I'm just kind of still on the fence. I'm trying it out. Like I said, we'll try it and we'll see how it goes. And yeah, it has its advantages. So yeah, we'll keep this going at least for this week anyway, and see what everybody thinks. All right. So over here on Facebook, we got Andrew saying, "Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, troops," giving us the triple slashy. Patricia is with us as always, saying, "Good afternoon, guys." Good afternoon to you. Sandra says, "Honk honk," right back at you. Aaron says, "Good morning. I am disgusted. I bet the free tampons they offer in the men's washrooms have plastic applicators." Oh God. Yeah, it's a pretty sad state of affairs out there. And we got Freedom Warrior saying, "Cheers from Wainwright." Oh my, way up there in Alberta. And the only time I was ever there was for Exercise Maple Guardian in 2009, just prior to my deployment to Afghanistan. Not a whole lot going on in Wainwright other than military exercises, as far as I can tell. But let me tell you, once that 3-week exercise let out and the boys around the town, it was a conflagration. It's a total mess. Oh my God. And Marion says, "Good afternoon, all. Cloudy in Ontario." Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but Ontario does have good motorcycle riding. Steve is saying, "Hello, fighters. I'm with you all fighting." And he gives us a bunch of boxing gloves. Well, it's a pleasure to have you, Steve, as always. Cindy, our most faithful of all watchers, says, "Good afternoon, Jeff. Good afternoon, friends. Good afternoon to you." And Leanne is saying, "Hey, Freedom family, watching from Woodland Creations in Merrickville, Ontario, doing some sanding and working in the wood shop today." Well, good for you. Thanks for being with us. I do appreciate you. And Stephanie's here saying, "Hi, everyone." Evelyn says, "Hello, all." And Cora says, "Good morning, everyone." All right, guys, I think I'm going to go ahead and dive right into it. Here is our philosophy quote for the day. Not really a philosopher. This is Catherine the Great. And she says, "Power without a nation's confidence is nothing." Yeah, and she would know. Catherine the Great was the ruler of Russia right around the 1760s to 1790s there. She actually came to power by overthrowing her husband and ushered in a renaissance in Russia, a renaissance of the sciences, of arts, of new cities, new universities. So she's quite the Renaissance woman, actually. They don't call her Catherine the Great for nothing. Well, just like she says, power without a nation's confidence is nothing. So going to be interesting to see if there's any developments on that front anytime soon. But don't get your hopes up, folks. Like I'm always saying, expectation management, I think, is really important in all of this. And I do a lot of that expectation management around here where I'm saying, we're in a war. So it's not going to be won in a single battle. It's going to take a series of battles over a longer period of time. And that's kind of the mindset that we need to adopt. But there's all kinds of great stuff happening out there. And we're going to get into that in a few minutes here. Well, maybe more than a few. Here is our meme for the day, and it's really just a post by Tokyo Rosie, who is pretty great on X. So give her a follow. And it's a picture of Donald Trump shaking hands with Justin Trudeau, and it says, "Word is Canadians prefer Pierre Poilievre to deal with a possible Trump presidency over Justin Trudeau. I guess people were tired of Trump grabbing Canada by the pussy." Well done, Tokyo Rosie. Well done. And just look at this limp-wristed handshake. Like, what is Trump supposed to like? Is he proposing right now? What the heck is going on here? This is just, oh God. Weak men bring hard times, folks. Okay, here is the Canadian Bolshevik Corporation, and they're saying Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's trip to Jamaica didn't break the rules that govern gifts and travel for elected officials because the stay was a gift from a longtime family friend, Interim Ethics Commissioner Conrad von Finkelstein said. Now, I'm not going to bother reading this crap, but my only comment is, you mean like a gift from a long-term family friend? like the Aga Khan. Is that what you mean? Wow, history is repeating itself with greater and greater rapidity, it seems. And here is the commentary from the committee itself. Larry Brock goes pretty hard after the ethics commissioner here, and Larry is tweeting out, Ferrari lens, 20K Ferrari is okay for a gift, but a $1 million one is not. When the ethics commissioner does not believe that a $200,000 gift is lavish, it's problematic to argue that Trudeau's free vacation must be investigated. What's lavish for you? Here it is.
If a gift is truly lavish, for example, a Ferrari, $1 million, I can start an investigation because I could have reason to think that there's something going on.
Now, a luxurious vacation or a gift is not defined in the Act. It's fair to say that you're applying a subjective lens as to what you deem to be super luxurious, which would require an investigation, as opposed to an objective standard that the Canadian public view is clearly luxurious. You provided an example that if someone gave the Prime Minister a Ferrari, clearly you would flag that. That would be an investigation. A Ferrari anywhere in the neighborhood of $200,000, but 2 consecutive yearly vacations to this ultra opulent vacation totaling well over $200,000 does not qualify. Is that accurate, sir?
No.
Not accurate?
That's not what I said. What I said, first of all, I said 1 million, not 200,000. Secondly, I said...
So if it's $1 million Ferrari, then it's a problem. But if it's a $200,000 Ferrari, then it's not.
Okay, in such a situation, I could, if I want to, step in and have an investigation. I did not say I would. I did not say it says I didn't. I just said if.
But that would be your subjective standard as to what is luxurious, correct? Because it's not defined in the Act.
No, of course it's not defined. It's a discussion. I have the discussion on to start an investigation when there is a situation which I think gives me reason to believe that is something has been done
so
here.
I got to move on. I've got 1 minute left.
Yeah, he has the discretion. In other words, he's another Liberal appointee. We just stack all these institutions with Trudeau's friends and various Liberals/progressives, and they'll get away with everything until the end of time. So here is Blandrew Scheer, and he's tweeting out. I'll go ahead and play the clip here. This is pretty good. Blandrew Scheer really kind of found his backbone after the Pravda press that we have here in Canada threw him under the bus during his bid for prime ministership. It was pretty shameless at the time. So it seems like he's finally found his backbone, and it's good to see. Good on Blandrew.
No, the Conservatives, Andrew Scheer, Mr. Scheer, for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. I'm sure we can probably agree on some metrics that reasonable people would use to measure the success of a broadcasting corporation. Would you agree that measuring viewership or ratings is a reasonable metric to measure the success of a broadcaster?
Viewership is one metric, so is usership.
Yeah, one metric.
Yeah.
It's I would say it's an important metric when you're talking about a broadcaster. You said a few minutes ago that ad revenue was I think you used the word, a major driver of whether or not you judge success. So would ad revenue also be a reasonable measure of success for a broadcaster?
It would be one of the variables, yes.
Right, okay. So viewership, yes. Ad revenue, yes. Trust also, whether or not people can trust what they're seeing on TV, especially when you run news outlets. You would agree, I hope, that trust in media would also be a measure of
something tells me Blandrew doesn't have much trust in media these days.
Success.
Absolutely.
Okay. And therefore errors would be another measure of success or failure. If there aren't a lot of errors, and that would be a good thing. If there are a lot of errors, that would be a bad thing. Would you agree on that?
Well, I actually would put a different response on error.
You notice how she almost said spin? I would put a different spin, I think was what she was going to say. And then she stopped herself.
I think error is a natural part of all journalism, and in the fact that CBC Radio-Canada posts its corrections as quickly as we do is actually a demonstration of why we are trusted, unlike others who may not.
Wow.
So I would say that that's a trusted source.
Wow. So the speed with which you correct your errors is the way that you measure performance at the CBC. Okay. Well, as we've agreed that viewership is an important metric. We've agreed that ad revenue.
He seems like he's having fun, you know. I like the new Blandrew.
Is an important metric. Trust as well. So fewer Canadians are watching the CBC than ever before. Viewership has plummeted to half of what it was when you became CEO in 2018. Ad revenue has also crashed. In fact, it was down 31% in just 1 year, 2022 to 2023. And trust in media, and especially in the CBC, has also declined. The NDP talk about misinformation. The CBC has had to issue more than 100 corrections to grave errors in reporting, and that obviously has an impact on trust. So given the fact that on all these important metrics that you've agreed on, what justification do you have to issuing performance awards?
I want to correct a couple of your points, if I may, Madam Chair. First of all, the 30% drop in revenue was between an Olympics year and a non-Olympics year. And in fact, in the years you're describing, we had 2 Olympic Games. And so we have a much higher level of revenue, ad revenue during those years. So that explains the drop.
Okay. So that is basically the only thing that anybody watches the CBC for these days, except for Patricia's Liberals, because apparently they only watch the CBC. Wow. That I feel for you there. That is quite the challenge.
So were ad revenues in 2023 higher than in 2022?
Dwayne, I see you're late. Drop and give me 20, brother.
I would say they were flat.
They're flat. Okay.
Yeah, and that is, by the way, very much part of what's going on in the industry. Television is in decline, not just at CBC.
And props to Dwayne over on Rumble there for owning that one. That was well done.
CTV and global television is in decline, and people are moving to streaming, and they're moving to their connected television.
With all due respect.
Right. They're moving away from you liars to find the truth elsewhere.
The CBC has almost $500 million in real estate holdings across the country. Big fancy buildings in downtowns across the country. You get over $1 billion in taxpayers' money to be a television broadcaster, radio broadcaster. When those metrics are down, how do you justify giving performance awards to people whose job it is to increase viewership, to increase ad revenue, to increase trust?
Madam Chair, if I may, I don't agree with the premise.
You don't agree that
no, I don't agree with the premise.
Shame on you, Blandrew. You see like how superior she is? Like the smugness is just like dripping right off of her. And Donatella was just saying, I stopped watching MSM 4 years ago. Best decision ever. Yeah, I made that decision 2011, I think, 2010 even maybe. I think, just around that time, I mean, I did a tour in Afghanistan, 2009 to 2010. And then I went straight out to posting Tyndall Air Force Base in Florida. And it was kind of like these successive experiences of being through the looking glass of my own country really kind of shattered my previous conceptions and definitely made me think twice. So that was when I started on my little journey to pursue the truth on my own.
79% of Canadians say that it is important for the country to have a public broadcaster like CBC Radio-Canada. 82% say...
Who commissioned that poll?
Those are our public perception surveys that we conduct.
Oh, you conducted. Okay. So your polling tells you that Canadians like what you're doing. By
using a third-party Leger survey firm.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. If the argument is to try to say that we're no longer of value, all I would say is that's not what I hear from Canadians.
What I'm asking about is the bonuses. With all due respect, Ms. Tate, when you give someone a bonus, and we've just agreed on the metrics that should be used to judge a broadcaster. When those metrics are down, how do you justify giving executives, big bonuses when they haven't achieved success by these metrics that we've agreed on.
As I pointed out, the metrics that we measure are public and tracked, and they're in all of our reports. So I'm afraid to say that that trust is down. Trust is down across the entire media section, and it also affects politicians. It also affects
when
all
you
of
misrepresent the truth, it does affect the politicians.
Excuse me, the time is up, but
Oh, what a hideous woman. Just, oh, boomer female. What the hell? But yeah, try telling her anything. I mean, she's better than the rest of us. All right. Here's Wiretap Media, and they say a new report from the government procurement contract hound shows that more than half of the companies paid to work on the ArriveCan app cashed out big checks, but did quote unquote fuck all for work. The ArriveCan scandals started to heat up in the fall of 2023 when that guy from Bottler IA sounded the alarm about quote unquote optics operation at the CBSA with senior level bureaucrats who had close connections with government officials. Although the representatives from Bottler didn't specifically work on developing the ArriveCan app itself, they have been key players in exposing systematic government corruption and what appears to be a taxpayer money laundering operation. That involves the same con artists that tried to exploit their organization on another CBSA project. Numerous experts and several people who worked for the Trudeau government claim that the billions of dollars Justin Trudeau's government has spent on the innovation agenda has not improved Canada's tech sector, and the ArriveCan app is a great example. Now, and this is, I was kind of thinking this when Catherine Tate was up there as well, but Jagmeet Singh's always talking about these greedy CEOs and how they're all the problem. How about we get rid of Catherine Tate? I mean, if there ever was a greedy CEO, that's one. And how about some of these guys?
Next question. Timur Durrani from the Globe and Mail. Numerous experts, including several people who have worked for your government, are now pointing out that the billions of dollars your government has spent on its innovation agenda has not demonstrably improved Canada's tech sector, Prime Minister, or moved indicators such as GDP growth or business investment in R&D.
Well, it's the app that Canadian travelers love to hate.
Hey, Peace Man, I heard your charges got dropped, man. Congratulations, and thanks for being with us. He says, as CBC uses new tech and instead of allowing the public to see comments and interact, they suppress and ignore the public that pays them. Yeah, I am aware. They're just rotten people.
The ArriveCan app.
The ArriveCan app.
The ArriveCan app.
Despite what people say, we continue to be committed to a high-tech future for Canada.
It's a so-called IT firm, but it's actually just two individuals working out of a house that seem to have deep, close connections with high government officials.
We're going to continue to stand by our investments.
We've heard from an IT company involved in the ArriveCan, and they've actually worked out the amount of hours, consulting hours spent on ArriveCan would cover 32 years of front-end development and 5 years of back-end development based on an 8-hour workday.
Let me ask another question. On this project, I think you said you build, related to ArriveCan, approximately $4.5 million each year. That is not profit to you, right? That is your cost, where you are getting money from the government and you are paying the people that you engaged to work on this project, correct?
Yes. We were not given $9 million. We have built $9 million through our time and material for engagement.
So in this context, your work for the government of Canada, you're the broker, the middleman between the government and the service provider. Is that correct?
Essentially, yeah. They would come to us with the requirements they asked for, and we facilitate that.
Can you please explain to the Canadian public what ghost contracting is?
Is basically a scheme in which a middleman that technically does no work is being added to government contracts without any legal trace.
Obviously, this is a practice that seems highly illogical and inefficient, and I have made sure that the clerk of the Privy Council is looking into procurement practices to make sure that we're getting value for money. And
Mr. Firth from GC Strategies himself lying to committee about his relationship with CBS officials at CBSA and PSPC.
Christian Firth told you that he was friends and had a relationship with Cameron McDonald. Is that correct? Correct. And in reference to Mr. McDonald, did Mr. Firth tell you, and I quote, "I've been with him his whole career in the government," close quote?
Correct.
Were you ever coached or directed to offer praise of Mr. McDonald?
Correct.
And who else did Christian Firth tell you he was friends with and had a relationship with in the government?
Well, Mr. Firth had a very wide network of high-level government executives that he was friends with, and mostly contracting authorities, C-level government executives.
We're going to continue to stand by our investments.
ArriveCan contractors submitted receipts to the government for a company that doesn't even exist.
The government reported, in response to a question tabled by a member in the House of Commons, that for work on ArriveCan, a company called Think On Inc. received a $1.2 million contract. Were you aware of that?
I was not aware of that.
You weren't aware?
This investigation already includes allegations of identity theft, forged resumes, contractual theft, fraudulent billing, price fixing, and collusion in the creation of the $54 million ArriveCan app.
I'm glad to be here today to announce $40 million of investment in this world-leading Canadian company.
Excellent work by Wiretap. They do great stuff. So they're at Wiretap Media CA on X. Please give them a follow. They're doing some great stuff over there. And I think, if memory serves, like there were the reports that came out initially about the Arrive Scam app was that this could have been developed like by a single developer for about $500,000, one software firm. So just unbelievable. Okay, and here is White Wabbit Warrior over on X, and he is a veteran bro. And here is Justin Trudeau's next campaign speech. Here we go.
Yes, it's true. I may not be a master builder. I may not have a lot of experience fighting or leading or coming up with plans or having ideas in general. In fact, I'm not all that smart. And I'm not what you'd call a creative type. Plus, generally unskilled. Also, scared and cowardly. I know what you're thinking. He is the least qualified person in the world to lead us. And you are right. Yes, it's true.
Yeah, that's about the size of it, folks. And Colleen is with us. She says, hi, folks. And damn, I just remembered this is on at noon. No. Yeah, I'm afraid so. Drop and give me 10, Colleen. But thanks for being with us.
True.
All right. Here. Oh, here's the Canadian Bolshevik Corporation just fawning over this. Barack Obama tweets endorsement of Justin Trudeau. Move by former American president may be unprecedented in Canadian politics. Yeah, you don't say. Is it bordering on election interference, perhaps? I got to wonder. And I haven't said this in a while, so I'll say it again. But Trudeau is our Obama in Canada. It's the extreme progressive agenda that they've imported from the United States. And practically speaking, in Canada, like, we are just one election cycle behind the Americans. I mean, basically what happens is our boomers try to outboom their boomers on the next election cycle. That's why we're just one election cycle behind them and further down the road to serfdom. And nobody has done more to send the generations coming up behind him down that road to serfdom than Barack Obama, Slickberry himself. Okay, so here's the article. Former President Barack Obama has tweeted an endorsement of Liberal leader Justin Trudeau and says he hopes Canadians give Trudeau, quote, another term, close quote, in office. Quote, I was proud to work with Justin Trudeau as president, close quote, Obama wrote on Wednesday afternoon. Quote, he's a hardworking, effective leader who takes on big issues like climate change. The world needs his progressive leadership now, and I hope our neighbors to the north support him for another term. Close quote. You see how the progressives are all in it together? They're it's a cult and it's an anti-Western movement. The endorsement of a former American president is rare and possibly unprecedented, even in Canadian politics. But this is the second time Obama has spoken up to endorse an international leader since he left office. In May of 2017, Obama recorded a video in which he endorsed Emmanuel Macron for the French presidency. Yeah, Obama is well known for just dispensing with all the norms and all the decorum when it comes to, quote unquote leadership. He polarized the electorate so badly during his presidency. It really ramped up when he was going for his second term, and he started calling everything. When it didn't go his way, it was like, oh, those Republicans, oh, those Republicans, oh, those Republicans. And I have a pen, and I have he can write executive orders. He wrote all these executive orders to just, defy the will of the people, and called people who didn't vote for him bitter clingers and so on and so forth. Incited race riots, after in the wake of Freddie Gray, Trayvon Martin. He got out there, instead of saying, we have to conduct investigations, may cooler heads prevail. He got out there and said, if I had a son, he would have looked like Trayvon. Racism is in America's DNA. And and so everybody rioted and people died. Continuing with the article. While it remains to be seen what impact, if any, Obama's endorsement might have had on the Canadian electorate, the Liberal Party has already touted his tweet to supporters in a fundraising appeal that was sent out on Wednesday afternoon. At a campaign stop in Quebec Wednesday, Trudeau didn't answer a question about whether he or his team sought out the endorsement, saying only, quote, I appreciate the kind words and I'm working hard to keep our progress going. Close quote. The key word, I think, is our, mine and Obama's. Asked about the Obama tweet as he campaigned in Montreal, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh said he had a lot of respect for Obama, but said, quote, in this respect, he's wrong, close quote. Well, not bad, Jagmeet. Quote, Mr. Trudeau has really let down people and consistently chosen to help out the powerful and the wealthy over Canadians, close quote, Singh said, replying, quote, no, close quote, when asked whether he thought Obama's move would hurt the NDP campaign. Now, when it comes to helping out the powerful and the wealthy over Canadians, there you go. That was the whole Obama mandate, right? He's the one who gave the bailout to the CEOs who crashed the whole the global financial market with the mortgage bond market collapse. He bailed out the CEOs. The CEOs laid off all the other generations working in the trades and in the factories and paid themselves bonuses. And that was the boomer generation of CEOs. That's what happened when they reach peak institutional power. Whenever they reach peak institutional power in any institution, it goes into a state of crisis, collapse, and they just happened to reach peak institutional power in the markets first in 2008. But really, that's Neil Howe that explains it that way. I think something that he probably missed is that they actually reached peak institutional power in the military first. And as you can see, the Canadian military has been a complete mess since the early 90s. Continuing with the article, Conservative leader Blandrew Scheer also... Conservative leader? No, he isn't. What the frick? This is from 2019. I just realized that. Okay. This came up this morning in the feed, so I guess I overlooked that. I'll read another line anyway. Conservative leader Blandrew Scheer was also asked about the endorsement during a campaign stop in Ancaster, Ontario. Quote, I've got millions of Canadians like the ones here tonight behind me. I'm not very interested in what former leaders are saying, Scheer said. Quote, I'm just focusing on finishing the election strong and putting together and putting forward my plan to help Canadians get ahead, close quote. Asked whether he thought Obama's tweet was appropriate, he said, quote, I'll let Canadians be the judge of that, close quote, adding he would speculate on why Obama made the endorsement. Okay, that kind of snuck in there on me. I missed the date, but it speaks to a broader point that I'm setting up here. So bear with me, guys. All right, here is Obama. And as I've been kind of saying around here, like the Biden presidency is effectively Obama's third term. I'm kind of looking at Obama as the shadow president, kind of controlling things from behind the scenes. He famously stayed in D.C. after his second term was completed, and that's unprecedented. And not only that, he was like a 10-minute bike ride from the White House, and he brought his chief of staff with him. And I think he's really stayed a lot more active behind the scenes than he lets on. So Cheryl Rhodes is saying Obama's third term, the arrangement, the facade was always going to end with Obama railroading Biden. In the end, it was always going to be the plan. Okay, so here is this clip.
Wish like you had a third term. And I used to say, you know what, if I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man or front woman, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats looking through the stuff, and then I could sort of deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and ceremony, I'd be fine with that.
I'm sorry, just the last question I'll take, and I'm really going to be in trouble.
We have to do those imminently, more imminently even, to address the full Obama agenda of building back better. The full
Freudian slip.
Obama agenda.
You know what, if I could make an arrangement, wish like you had a
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. And it is the Obama agenda, like the mass migration and everything really ramped up under him. All of this stuff really started with him. The crime, the riots, the catch and release policies, mass migration, all this stuff started with Obama. And Magazine of 58 on Rumble is saying, hi, Jeff from Stettler, Alberta. Love the new time slot. Okay, great. I seem to be getting some pretty positive feedback on the time slot. But by all means, constructive criticism is welcome as well. So if you prefer the morning, then let me know. Okay, here is France 24. Now, speaking of the Obama agenda, remember, Obama was the father of the Iran nuclear deal. Now, Iran is an odious regime with an apocalyptic worldview that is the primary threat in the Middle East above all others. Everything we've been talking about with respect to what's happening in the Middle East right now, it's all their proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah. I mean, Hamas are Sunni too, so they'll basically fund anybody who hates Israel in the United States. Well, I say that because the Iranian regime is Shia. They're the great Shia power in the region, and Saudi Arabia is the great Sunni power. But as odious as Saudi Arabia is, they're not as odious as they were previously, it seems. They put about $80 billion into international terrorism since the 1980s, since they really started making a lot of oil money, and pushed the noble Quran. Like, that's the most prolific Quran version of the Quran that's out there. There are all kinds of different versions of it, by the way. But that one is particularly kind of jihadi, like it's particularly violent. But Saudi Arabia was also poised to sign the Abraham Accords, along with other Arab nations like the UAE, and the Sudan was the big one. That's where Khartoum is. And the Khartoum resolution was the famous 3 no's from the Arab world back in the 70s there. It was no relations with Israel, no negotiations with Israel, no peace with Israel. And now, like, countries like that are signing on to the Abraham Accords to normalize relations with Israel. Meanwhile, Iran continues to be as odious as it ever has been. And these are the guys, like, during the wars with the Iran-Iraq wars, they would actually send young boys into the minefields. They'd give them like a headband and a golden key and say that it was the golden key into paradise. And, they have the Ayatollah's blessing to go to paradise. And they would send them out there to clear minefields for the troops, as in, like, blow themselves up. They go running right into barbed wire and mines and all this stuff. Little boys, just odious, nasty regime. So here is France 24, and they say IAEA regrets, quote unquote, no progress as Iran falls short of nuclear commitments. Now, this is a review. This is from 2023, so this is, well, not that much of a review, but I'm setting this up. So the UN nuclear watchdog said Monday it regretted that, quote unquote, no progress has been made by Iran on outstanding issues, including installing more cameras to monitor Tehran's nuclear program. And that has been the kind of game that they've been playing. They're like, no, we just want nuclear power. We just want nuclear power. Now, they're oil rich, so I don't know that they're, these dedicated environmentalists. I think it's really the case that they're going after the nuclear weapons. And there was that time. When was it? It was under the Trump admin when they took down their whole program at one point, and it was they hacked it. And I understood that what happened was they just put this virus on a USB stick, and understanding how inept humans really are, they somebody just picked it up in the parking lot and plugged it into a machine in one of these facilities, and it took down their whole nuclear program. But they're still going after this stuff, and if they get it, they will use it. That's the real issue here. So like China, yeah, I mean, as much of a threat as they are, they've had the nukes for quite a while and they haven't used them. Russia have actually been pretty good stewards. They're like a trusted adversary of nuclear technology. We even gave them smallpox, and they've been hanging on to that. But when it comes to Iran, they have this apocalyptic worldview, and what happens on the Day of Judgment is that the Muslims fight the Jews, and there are scriptural references to this, where the trees cry out, "Oh, Muslim, there is a Jew hiding behind me. Come and kill him." And they take this stuff literally, as do Hamas. So like that line that I just gave you is actually in the Hamas charter. So if these guys get the nuke, it could be game over. Anyway, here we go. The International Atomic Energy Agency Director General, and that's IAEA, Director General Rafael Grossi, quote, requests Iran to work with the agency in earnest and in a sustained way towards the fulfillment of the commitments, close quote, the agency said in a confidential report seen by AFP. Tehran in March vowed to reactivate surveillance devices which were disconnected in June 2022 amid deteriorating relations with the West. In a separate report, also seen by AFP, the IAEA said Iran's total stockpile of enriched uranium was lower than in May, but still more than 18 times the limit set in a 2015 accord between Tehran and world powers. 18 times they've violated this thing over. So Iran's total enriched uranium stockpile was estimated at 3,795.5 kilograms, and that's 83,677 pounds. As of August 19th, down by 949 kilograms from May, the agency said. The limit in the 2015 deal was set at 202.8 kilograms. The stockpile of uranium enriched up to 60% is now at 121.6 kilos, up from 114.1 kilos in May. Iran also has 535.8 kilos of uranium enriched up to 20%, up from 470.9 kilos in the last May report. The landmark 2015 deal curbing Iran's nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief started to fall apart in 2018 when the U.S. unilaterally withdrew from the reimposed sanctions. Efforts to revive it, bringing Washington back to the deal and scaling back Tehran's program again, have been fruitless so far, with European-led talks on hold since 2022. Tensions between Tehran and Washington eased last month with the announcement of an agreement for Iran to release 5 American prisoners in exchange for the return of $6 billion in Iranian funds frozen in South Korea. But the delicate agreement does not include the possibility of a return to the nuclear deal in the run-up to the 2024 U.S. presidential election. I think everybody is looking at that U.S. presidential election. And as I've been saying, I'd be shocked if China didn't make a move on Taiwan sometime this year. Okay, and I believe I have shown this clip here before, but it's worth reviewing now. Here is Marina Medven, and she says, when they tell you who they are, believe them. So here is a series of clips. Now, this first guy is Hamad al-Ragheb, Hamas official sheikh. I'll give you the translation, guys. He says, "O Allah, bring annihilation upon the Jews. Paralyze them, destroy their entity. O Allah, enable us to get the necks of the Jews. O Allah, enable us to get the necks of the Jews. The day of your slaughter." Now, this is Fatih Hamad. He's former interior minister of Gaza. And he says, the day of your slaughter, extermination, and annihilation is near. And this is Ahmed Hamas Imam speaking at Hamas Friday sermon. Until not a single Jew or Zionist is left on the face of the earth. This is unnamed Hamas Imam speaking at Hamas Friday sermon. He says, our doctrine in fighting you, the Jews, is that we will totally exterminate you. We will not leave a single one of you alive. This is Mahmoud al-Zahar, Hamas co-founder. He says, the Quran says, quote, kill them wherever you may find them. Yeah. We will fight them wherever we can. And this is another imam on a Hamas Friday sermon. He says, the moment will come when their property will be destroyed and their sons annihilated. Oh, Allah, destroy the Jews and their supporters. Now, this is Ahmed Bakr, Deputy Speaker, Hamas Parliament. Oh, Allah, destroy the Americans and their supporters. Oh, Allah, count them one by one, kill them all without leaving a single one. Oh, Allah, bring annihilation upon the Jews. Oh, this is starting over again, guys. But yeah, you get the idea. These are people in positions of leadership within the Gazan community here. And this is Hamas as a proxy for Iran. And everybody seems to have the same agenda, and that is the annihilation of the Jews. It's a, it's a genocidal agenda. And Colleen is saying, if Trump doesn't get elected, I think Canada is done for. I think Trump probably is the best hope that we have right now. Yeah. And Mother of the Drummers is saying, hi, Jeff, I'm late. 20 finger push-ups for me. All right. Awesome. Great. Great job. The accountability is great around here. Everybody's just kind of owning it when they show up late, and I'll do my push-ups. So awesome group we have. And here's Grand Old Patriots. Joe Biden 2 weeks ago. I've already delivered the message to Iran. They know not to do anything, close quote. Iran-backed terrorists just killed 3 U.S. service members and wounded 25 in a drone strike near Jordan. Biden in the White House is costing American lives. Yep, that's right. Weak men bring hard times. And here he is speaking on that at the time. It's just a couple of weeks ago now.
I've already delivered the message to Iran. They know not to do anything. Hang on a second.
Bombing the Houthis if the attacks don't stop, sir?
Say that again?
Bombing the Houthis if the attacks don't stop. Will you continue with the strikes, sir?
We will make sure that we respond to the Houthis as they continue this outrageous behavior, along with our allies.
Now, I think he actually goes in for a little hair sniff on the blonde there, and that's cut off the end, but that's just kind of the icing on the cake. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is why all of this is happening right now. None of this stuff would be happening if Donald Trump was, who I think is probably the duly elected president, if he were still in office. Okay, and here is Nan Lee too saying exactly, quote, when Americans are killed, we expect action, close quote. Listen to Richard Garnell on Joe Biden's response to the drone strike in Iran. So they killed 3 service members. This is like 5 total in the last couple of weeks. And Americans are going to be demanding action on this. Like they absolutely do not put up with this kind of stuff, especially when it comes to their uniformed service members. But Biden is, he's Bidening this up. He's getting it all Bidened up. So anyway, here we go. This is Newsmax.
Rick, good to have you on. How do you assess the situation? This is obviously from the new conservative, viewpoint in this country. A lot of people have really taken on to this, no new wars. We had 4 years under Trump, no new wars. So everybody's starting to you're starting to hear this drumbeat of, you can't respond because it might escalate into another war. At the same time, I think a response is necessary here. It's a tricky one politically.
Yeah, look, I think we need to go back and replay that clip that you played of Joe Biden talking to reporters when directly asked, is Iran responsible? He hedged. Now, you know who saw that? The regime. The regime saw that as okay, Joe Biden doesn't technically think that we're responsible. We can continue funding all of these proxies and get away with it. That was a huge strategic blunder. Look, as you know, Rob, I'm a diplomat. I've been at the State Department for more than a decade, and I want there to be peaceful solutions. That doesn't mean wimpy solutions, because diplomacy should have the best, toughest people at the table, because when we fail, then we have to transfer the file over to the Pentagon, and the Pentagon doesn't negotiate. There's a lot of talk about war right now from the White House, but we don't see Anthony Blinken. Anthony Blinken should be in the region talking about bringing our hostages home and calming the situation down, and he's doing neither of those.
And Odious Patton is saying, the White House affirmed that the Pentagon has no evidence about Iran's involvement in the attack on the U.S. military base Tower 22 in Jordan. Well, that sounds like it's coming from the White House, so I wouldn't really trust that. And I pay attention to language. When they say evidence, like evidence is really more like a legal term. What they have in situations like this is intelligence. And I mean, it's been well established for decades that these are proxies for Iran, whether it be Hezbollah or Hamas or, various other groups. I mean, when I was on my last tour in 2019 in Iraq, every day, the intelligence briefing in the morning, like it was just all of these different Shia militia groups, they're called SMGs, and it was like ISIS who, like they had freedom of movement 12 kilometers away from where I slept at night, but everything I heard in the intelligence brief was all around these different Shia militia groups. They're all over the place, and I didn't even know a lot of their names. I've been tracking this issue for a long time, and I was like, I never even heard of these guys. Where are all these groups coming from? But yeah, over there in the region on the ground, the people realize that the real threat is Iran.
It's because at the end of the day, everything that they have done emboldens this country to do exactly what they do. And Rick, am I crazy to think that they knew that something like this was going to happen? That in the back of your minds, doesn't it make sense that they would know that if you just pump Iran full of money, their ideology hasn't changed at all? That something like this was going to come down the pike, and now you have Biden out there saying, I don't want to escalate the situation. You've escalated it with the policies that you've put in for the last 3 years. How could they have not known that this was going to happen?
Well, dear God, I hope that they know when they give $100 billion to a crazy radical regime, that crazy radical regime is going to do what they always do, which is terrorism and go towards a nuclear weapon. Look, I'm concerned on the diplomatic side that we're not doing enough. For instance, the Prime Minister of Qatar was on TV today, and in the TV interview, he was extremely dismissive of American policy, whether it was UNRWA, the UN works program. He just thought, well, that's a good organization. He was very dismissive of Iran and our concerns. Look, we've had 5 individuals, not 3. We've had 5 killed in the last 10 days to 2 weeks. We had 2 Navy SEALs and then 3 other individuals. When Americans are killed, we expect action. And I'm not necessarily saying that it has to be military action. There certainly should be diplomatic action. And when the Prime Minister of Qatar is so dismissive of us, that's a problem. Joe Biden needs to pick up the phone, call him, get our hostages returned, because let's make no mistake, the Prime Minister of Qatar could get our hostages home in about 5 minutes.
That is something, isn't it? And all of this, Rick, they've
yeah, and Odious Patton, I see that you're saying they said it was an Iranian drone yesterday. Now that's, well, I guess the thing is that Iran uses proxies so they can maintain some semblance of plausible deniability with respect to their involvement. So somebody probably generalized in a way that said, yeah, it was an Iranian drone, but that doesn't mean that it was an Iranian military drone that was traced back to the Iranian military. It's probably a proxy, right?
We've got a huge inflation problem in Iran because, it's so interesting how they run this country when they don't have to, they're not beholden to the voters in Iran. Obviously, it's a regime. They have a massive inflation problem in their country, and it's escalating and it's getting worse because of the risk of having a potential military confrontation with the United States. They're actually destroying their own country's economy because they're so beholden to this radical ideology that they stir up all throughout the Middle East and the world with all of this terrorism. It's actually destroying their ability to run their own country.
And sadly, the people that are going to take the brunt of this are the people of Iran who don't have human rights. Now they're not going to have enough food. But the elites, the regime, and all of the elites inside Iran.
The boomer generation. And that is the sad part about this is actually Iran. Like, geez, back in the 70s, Iran was, you had ladies walking around in nice dresses and skirts and stuff like that. But once the Ayatollahs came to power, they slid backward into this kind of, Islamic state. The same thing happened in Afghanistan, famously. Yeah, it's the people in charge that are the problem, but these intractable situations, necessarily, any response to them is going to result in consequences for innocent people within the country.
They will be just fine.
That's exactly right. Rick Grinnell, good to see you as always. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So, moving on. Here is Proud Army Brat on X, and she's saying, "Remember back when Iran chanted, quote, 'Death to America,' close quote, and then Biden gave them $6 trillion. Is that trillion? That's $1,000 billion, $6 billion. Jeez. Okay, so here we go. $6 billion after this. Caption here, CNN, Iranian lawmakers chant death to America, close quote. And not that CNN is a credible news source, it's a progressive propaganda machine. But when the progressives are telling you things that go against their narrative, then you can probably trust that.
Iranian lawmakers chanting death to America. That is clearly how they feel, or certainly the way that they are expressing themselves. Fred.
There you go. So it is an odious regime with an apocalyptic worldview. And well, it's just like we hear all the time, they love death more than we love life. So yeah, it's going to be bad news, I think, especially if they get their hands on a nuke. Okay, here is the New York Post, and they say Biden says he's decided on response to drone strike that killed 3 U.S. troops, doesn't want wider war with Iran. Okay, so you're not supposed to say that part out loud, Joe. That's the thing. I mean, you remember when it was Kim Jong-un and the North Korean regime that was saber rattling there, and I mean, Donald Trump basically defeated North Korea with Twitter. It was pretty great, and the tweet was all about like the fire and the fury, like the world has never seen, and all this stuff. You got to make sure that they think you're serious. You got to present a credible threat in order to keep these people in check. Because that's all they understand. We're talking about, savages basically here. And that's all they really understand is pleasure and pain. And so you have to have that credible threat in order to deter this kind of stuff in the first place. I'm not really going to go into the article there, but yeah, that's just kind of my comment on that. Way to go, Joe. And here is Brother Nathaniel. Butterball Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin says he will, quote, hunt down, close quote, and, quote, get those culprits, close quote, who attacked the U.S. base in southern Iraq. Ever try to swat 13 flies at the same time? Good luck, Lloyd. And here he is sharing out a graphic of a map here. And they're showing all these different locations of these different proxies that I'm discussing now. And you've got Syria, the Fedayeen division, and you've got Lebanon, Hezbollah in the Palestinian territories, Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Iraq, Kataib, Hezbollah, Asab al-Haq, Harak, Hezbollah al-Nujaba, Badr organization, Kataib, Syed al-Shahuda. You see what I mean? Like a lot of these organizations, they're out there, but they're not very well known. Now down here in Yemen, we know about the Houthis, and in Bahrain, we got Al-Ashtar Brigades and the Saraya Mukhtar. So Iran, like they use these proxies. You can see they're really heating things up in the Yemenese civil war. That's basically a proxy war between Saudi Arabia and Iran, with the Houthis controlling this area of the country that I'm pointing to right now. It's like the southwest corner that it's right on the entrance into the Red Sea here, which is an important shipping lane. And when they start attacking ships, when they send their proxy, the Houthis, in there to attack cargo ships, then our prices go up, our standard of living goes down. And also, like, the Saudi Arabians are the ones that are backing the actually internationally recognized government of Yemen. They control most of the territory, but the down here, like they had to there were Iranian soldiers, actual Iranian military in here before things heated up with the Houthis. They got them out of the way. My read of the situation was the U.S. kind of gave them enough lead time to get them out of the way in order to avoid a broader conflict with Iran. But while they were going after the Houthis, they're a proxy. So they didn't go after the Iranian military directly, even though they were there, providing training and support to the Houthis. They got them out of the way, and then they went after the Houthis. So I think they're doing everything they can to kind of avoid that broader conflict. But Iran is just not going to let up, I don't think. All right, and here we are sitting on the brink of World War III, and here is Joe Rogan and Tulsi Gabbard discussing the prospect of total nuclear war.
A nuclear war could break out. We are staring over the precipice of that nuclear brink now more than ever before. Nuclear war in World War III.
Okay, Glenn is commenting. Trump said something like, I have a button too, and my button works. Yeah, it was, would somebody in Kim Jong-un's half-starved regime please tell him that I also have a button on my desk and that mine actually works? Just glorious. He defeated North Korea with Twitter.
3 could be imminent. Total destruction of the planet.
Holy shit.
Is imminent.
Yeah, I'm concerned about all that, but you're so pretty though. Excuse me. I'm going to ask you a difficult question. What about oral sex?
What? What's wrong with you?
I mean, it would be wonderful.
A nuclear war could break out, and you're talking about sex.
Yeah. Yeah. What about masturbation sessions?
Come on. Why do you keep talking about sex? This is literally insane and needs to stop.
Here's the thing. If you want to be pregnant,
no, absolutely not.
You're denying a child a future.
I'm sorry. No, we can't have sex.
Like, what are you saying?
That's not a viable option.
Why not?
You're just absolutely disgusting.
What? Mm-hmm. Really? That's not true at all.
Both physically as well as mentally.
Really? Like, what? Is everyone out of their fucking mind?
Don't want to have anything to do with you.
Really? Like, what?
Forget it. You're done.
All right. Well, thank you for your input. Bye. See ya. Bye-bye.
Okay. We got to have a few laughs, folks. Heavy subjects in a pretty dark time through which we're living. So, and as I'm always saying, humor is a coping strategy for humans. And the only thing blacker than Trudeau's heart is a soldier's humor. So here is War Watch, and they say Matt Lee from Associated Press just hammers the State Department on Jenin hospital operation. All right, I'll go ahead and play the clip here and check this out.
Okay.
So this is the Jenin hospital in Gaza, by the way. I reported on this yesterday, I think, where the Israelis conducted an operation within that hospital. Here we go.
And then my second thing, which is related, but not on.
Yeah, Chorus asking if it's parody. Yes, it's definitely parody. It's all spliced together, and maybe there's some AI involved. I don't think so, but it looks like they just spliced together some different clips from an interview that they did to make it look that way. Still pretty funny though, right?
Which has to do with this operation that the Israelis launched in Jenin hospital today. What do you have any comment on that? Is this something that you think is problematic, or is it something that you look at with envy? Like this is some kind of great Mission Impossible mission that we wish that we could also do?
So I'd say that we strongly urge.
Shame on you, right?
Caution whenever operations have the potential to impact civilians and civilian installations. That, of course, includes hospitals. We do recognize the very real security challenges Israel faces and its legitimate right to defend its people and its territory from terrorism. Israel, of course, has the right to carry out operations to bring terrorists to justice, but those operations need to be conducted in full compliance with international humanitarian law.
Well, do those operations include going into hospitals and murdering people in their beds, regardless of whether they're...
He just threw that in there. This guy is a progressive boomer male, and well, as you can see, like the progressives hate the West, and Israel is a Western power for all intents and purposes in an otherwise dark corner of the world, surrounded by its enemies. Yeah, I think this guy is pushing this spin here, but we'll get into that in a second. He's I don't know how anybody could think this is an own, but you know, he's not getting a very strong response either.
So you know, they are suspected or even known terrorists.
So
is that okay with you guys?
So there was a lot in the premise of that question. Obviously, we did know that
a lot of BS in the premise of that question.
They went into,
well, you don't think that they went in and killed complete people who were completely innocent?
So let me say that
if you did think that, then you would be condemning it, right?
We certainly would, but I would say that Israel has said that these were Hamas operatives. They have said that one of them was carrying a gun at the time of the operation. So I'm not able to speak to the facts of the operation. You'd have to pass some kind of legal judgment, know all of the facts of the operation. But as a general matter, they do have the right to carry out operations to bring terrorists to justice, but they need to be conducted
including in a hospital.
And this is something we've been tracking from the very start of this conflict. I mean, I've been tracking this for years, man. Like Hamas uses hospitals, schools, playgrounds, Boy Scout troops, you name it, as bases of operations. They launch missiles. They launch those. They launched rockets from the location of the Al-Shifa hospital. That was really early on, and then reported that an Israeli airstrike leveled the hospital when in fact it was one of those rockets that failed on to reach its target in Israel and hit the parking lot next to the hospital. They even did a whole photo op where they had a bunch of people like dressed up like doctors, surrounded by probably people pretending to be dead in the same picture. And the New York Times just ran with that Hamas propaganda and said that Israel had flattened the hospital. And of course, Al-Shifa Hospital still stands to this day. It's absolutely polluted with these underground tunnels and stuff that they've been trying to flesh out throughout this entire operation. But that's what they've been doing with the international aid that we've been sending them. Instead of, instead of providing proper services and a better life for their people, like, they could have, they got enough money to turn Gaza into the Shanghai of the Middle East. And instead, they put it into these terror tunnels and into all of these. Well, that's all they did is they used it to reconstitute during a ceasefire long enough in order to build their strength to attack again. I mean, there was a ceasefire on October 6th, October 7th, not so much. And from day one, they were screaming for a ceasefire. As soon as it was like October 8th, they were screaming for a ceasefire and calling genocide. So here we go.
We want them to conduct their operations in compliance with international humanitarian law. We would generally say that we don't want them to carry out operations in hospitals, but under international humanitarian law, hospitals do lose some of their protections if they are being used to for the planning of terrorist operations, for the execution of terrorist operations.
The actual hospital building does, but I mean, going in disguised as women and doctors and whatever is something different, and then going in and picking out people in particular rooms or beds and
I haven't seen that.
Killing them seems to be something different.
So again, not able to offer an assessment without knowing all these facts. I said some of the facts that have been presented by Israel are that one of them was carrying a gun and that they were planning to carry out or to launch terrorist operations. So you would have to look at all of those facts to make a specific assessment about this operation. But in general, we do want to see hospitals protected. It is important that no civilians were harmed in this operation. And as I said, we do believe it's
how do you know that?
There have been no reports of civilians who have been harmed in this operation.
Well, there you go. And really, I think what he's saying is like this reporter is kind of putting all these claims built into his question. He's just like, I haven't encountered this claim before. And Cindy is saying, fever just spiked up to 102.3 FML. See y'all later. Well, feel better, Cindy. I'm sorry to hear that. And we have some of our great people in the chat saying, sorry to hear, Cindy, take care. And Patricia's saying, okay, time to kick some ass. Be back later. Okay. Must be talking about the kiddos. So, all right.
Okay. And then my second thing, which is related, but
shut up, Boomer Mail. All right. Here is CTV News, and they're saying Israeli forces dressed as civilian women and medics kill 3 militants in West Bank hospital. Jenin, West Bank. Israeli forces disguised as civilian women and medics stormed a hospital Tuesday in the occupied West Bank, killing 3 Palestinian militants in a dramatic raid that underscored how deadly violence has spilled into the territory from the war in Gaza. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, meanwhile, ruled out a military withdrawal from Gaza or the release of thousands of jailed militants, Hamas's main 2 demands for any ceasefire, casting doubt on the latest efforts to end the war that has destabilized the border or the broader Middle East. Well, I mean, they're still holding hostages there in Gaza. So, okay, the Palestinian Health Ministry and Israeli forces opened fire inside the Ibn Sinai hospital in the West Bank town of Jenin. A hospital spokesperson said there was no exchange in fire, indicating it was a targeted killing. Israel's military said the militants were using the hospital as a hideout without providing evidence. Well, this is a progressive news outlet, guys. But like we have seen this consistently since the start of the conflict, especially, like I said, with the Al-Shifa hospital. It alleged that one of those targeted had transferred weapons and ammunition to others for a planned attack, purportedly inspired by Hamas's October 7th assault on southern Israel that triggered the war in Gaza. Well, at least they're saying that it was the massacre that triggered the war in Gaza, because CBC said that Israel started the war. So, security camera footage from the hospital shows about a dozen undercover forces, most of them armed, wearing Muslim headscarves, hospital scrubs, or white doctors' coats. One carried a rifle in one arm and a folded wheelchair in the other. Netanyahu rejects Hamas's key demands. Netanyahu, speaking at an event elsewhere in the West Bank, denied reports of a possible ceasefire deal to end the war in Gaza and repeated his vow to keep fighting until, quote, absolute victory, close quote, over Hamas. Quote, we will not end this war without achieving all our goals, close quote, said Netanyahu, who is under mounting pressure from families of the hostages and the wider public to reach a deal. Quote, we will not withdraw the Israeli military from Gaza Strip, and we will not release thousands of terrorists, close quote, he said. I think they've had enough at this point. They withdrew from Gaza in 2005, and they've just violated ceasefire after ceasefire. And with the latest massacre, I think Netanyahu is saying, like, enough is enough. Hamas has to be destroyed. On Tuesday, Hamas's top political leader, Ismail Haniyeh, said the group was studying the latest terms for the deal, but that the priority was the quote-unquote full withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza, and that any agreement should lead to a long-term ceasefire. He said Hamas's leadership has been invited to Cairo to continue talks. The militant group, which has reached lopsided deals with Israel in the past, is expected to demand the release of thousands of Palestinian prisoners, including high-profile militants, in exchange for the remaining hostages. Qatar and Egypt, which mediate with Hamas, have held talks with Israel and the United States in recent days. U.S. officials said negotiators had made progress toward a deal, including the phased release of the remaining hostages over a 2-month period and the entry of more humanitarian aid into Gaza. The war in Gaza began when hundreds of Hamas-led militants stormed into southern Israel, killing about 1,200 people, mostly civilians, and abducting about 250 others. Over 100 were released during a week-long ceasefire in November in exchange for 240 Palestinians imprisoned by Israel. Israel's offensive had killed more than 26,700 people in Gaza, according to the health ministry in the Hamas-run territory. So those are Hamas's numbers. The ministry count does not distinguish between fighters and civilians, but it said about 2/3 of the dead are women and minors. And that's what happens when you use human shields. A strike on the residential building in the central town of Deir al-Bala on the Tuesday killed 11 people, including 4 children, according to the Associated Press reporters who saw the bodies at the hospital. The war has leveled vast swaths of the tiny coastal enclave, displaced 85% of its population, and pushed a quarter of the residents to starvation. And here we have hospitals have become battlegrounds. Israel has come under heavy criticism for its raids on hospitals in Gaza, which have treated tens of thousands of Palestinian wounded in the war and provided critical shelter for displaced people. Well, yeah, and there are command posts for Hamas operations as well, which makes them legitimate targets under the Geneva Conventions. But, this is a progressive outlet. Gaza's healthcare system, which was already feeble before the war, is on the verge of collapse, buckling under the scores of patients, as well as a lack of fuel and medical necessities because of Israeli restrictions and fighting in and near the facilities. They did facilitate an evacuation. There was a safe corridor that I reported on here when this was initially going down, and Palestinians carrying those white flags walking down the corridor were provided safe passage by IDF forces, and Hamas still fired rockets even at their own people as they were fleeing through the safe corridor. Israel says militants use hospitals as cover. The military says it has found underground tunnels in the vicinity of hospitals and located weapons and vehicles used in the October 7th attack on hospital grounds. The Palestinian Red Crescent said Israeli forces raided the Al Amal hospital in the southern Gaza city of Khan Yunis on Tuesday, where about 7,000 displaced people were sheltering. The rescue service said Israeli tanks lined up outside the hospital were firing live ammunition and smoke grenades at the people inside. Rael al-Nims, a spokesperson for the aid group, said everyone was ordered to evacuate. The Israeli military said, without elaborating, that its forces were operating in the area of the hospital, but not inside it. And then we have the West Bank crackdown. Violence in the West Bank has also surged since October 7th, as Israel has cracked down on suspected militants, killing more than 380 Palestinians, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry. Most were killed in confrontations with Israeli forces during arrests, raids, or violent protests. The military said that in Tuesday's hospital raid, forces killed Mohammed Jalameni, 27, who it said was planning an imminent attack. The two other men killed, brothers Basel and Mohammed Ghazawi, were hiding inside the hospital and were involved in attacks, the military said. The army statement with Jalemne was armed with a pistol, but made no mention of an exchange of fire. Hamas claimed the 3 men as members, calling the operation, quote, a cowardly assassination, close quote. Hospital spokesperson Taufik al-Shobaka said there was no exchange of fire and that Basel Ghazawini had been a patient since October with partial paralysis. Quote, what happened is a precedent, close quote, he said. Quote, there was never an assassination inside a hospital. There were arrests and assaults, but not an assassination, close quote. Tuesday's raid took place in the West Bank town of Jenin, a long bastion of armed struggle against Israel and the freaking target of Israeli raids even before the war began. Yeah, that's a hell of a way to put it there, CTV News. Long a bastion of armed struggle. So that is the progressive paradigm really coming through there. I mean, the Hamas are the attackers in this situation, but they're always going to view these situations through that Marxist lens, and whoever is less prosperous and weaker militarily, they are the good guys automatically through that Marxist lens. But in reality, no, not so much. Israel captured the West Bank along with the Gaza Strip and East Jerusalem in the 1967 Mideast War. That was the war when it was attacked by all of its neighbors for the second time. So Israel withdrew troops and settlers from Gaza in 2005, but imposing a stifling blockade on the territory along with Egypt when Hamas came to power in a violent takeover in 2007. It maintains an open-ended occupation of the West Bank, where more than 500,000 Israelis now live in settlements. The Palestinians claim these territories as part of their future independent state, hopes for which have increasingly dimmed since the war began. Well, they turned down 3 different two-state solutions over the years, and I'm glad that they put this in here, this blockade, the blockade imposed by Israel, along with Egypt, because, a lot of hay is made over the Israel-Gaza border, and it is a border fence. It's a security fence, and they have security measures in place, even like machine guns. But it's indistinguishable from the border with Egypt. So where is the common point there? Well, we have a problematic population in Gaza, I'm afraid. Okay, yeah, I see the. Okay, somebody was just complaining about a spammer, so I think I got him, guys. Bye-bye. Okay, am I still with everybody out there? Veterans for Freedom Facebook page and all that? Yeah, I think so. Okay, so here is Shaya Reshik on Twitter, X, whatever, and they say, breaking, I spoke with an injured IDF soldier who was shot from an UNRWA school. He watched his commander die after Hamas shot him from the school. A few Hamas terrorists were using the UNRWA school to cover and to store weapons. This week, it was revealed that multiple UNRWA employees took part in the attack. The attack is October 7th in this case. So we're going to get into that here in a second. But yeah, it has been discovered that multiple UNRWA, these are UN employees, actually partook in the October 7th massacre. They didn't just support it, but they were engaged in it as well. So here is, and I know some people are really distrusting of the IDF and stuff like this. This is just kind of one man's word, but here it is.
Just 2 weeks in, we had, unfortunately, a bad day where we were advancing south. We were meant to take a new position. We were moving towards Jabalia from Beit Hanun, and it forced us to cross in front of an UNRWA school. Unfortunately, schools in the Gaza Strip, hospitals, places of worship, things that we consider sanctuaries and off limits are completely in bounds when you put it in the context of Hamas. There's evidence all over, almost every school they've found weapon storages, munitions depots. We're on this path, it's about 120 meters adjacent to the school, and we were left pretty exposed. My commander stopped about 20 meters in front of the house because he wanted to ask permission to go in. When he stopped, I just felt like someone was staring at me and something was off. There was like a bad omen. And as I'm turning around, I hear and I see my commander and his comms person get shot. So both of them are now on the ground. It was like one after the other.
And they were shot at from the school?
Yeah. There was a sniper behind the school. At the time, this is very difficult to gauge, but there was a sniper behind the school. And then there was a squad of Hamas soldiers in the school. So 2 to 4, we think, Hamas operatives that were shooting at us directly from the school. The rest of the firefight, right after that, I started to hear the AK-47s, and that was coming from the school. And after 2 to 3 minutes, I looked over at him, and I made the conscious decision that if I don't run out to him to try to save him, he's going to die. I ran, I sprinted, I got to him successfully, but he's really heavy, and as I'm trying to pull him up, I get maybe 1 or 2 feet on him, and as I'm doing that, I'm exposed and I'm static, and the sniper is able to shoot me in my leg. And as I'm crawling, I got shot in my left leg, but it went through muscle. And I got shrapnel in my right hip and in my lower right back, which are really dangerous places to get shrapnel. Search and rescue came, 669. It's the best search and rescue team in the world. They took me to Sheba, to this place where we're sitting right now, and they were able to save my leg and my life. My officer was unfortunately killed. He was killed before I ran out to him. The bullet was a headshot. I just didn't see it. He was already gone.
Yeah, so very difficult situation to manage. I don't know that there's any military in the world that could handle it as well as the IDF is handling it right now. Yeah, Freedom for All is saying Netanyahu's IDF are genocidal maniacs. Well, if that were the case, then we would have seen a genocide already. They could do that if they wanted to. They could commit a genocide in Gaza, but that's not what we see. And here is CJA, and they're the Canadian Institute for Jewish Association, something like that. They're a Jewish think tank here in Canada, and they say 190 UNRWA Gaza staff are, quote, hardened fighters, killers, close quote. 10% of 12,000 plus staff are Hamas or Islamic Jihad members. Incorporated, 1 in 4 male staff. 50% of staff are closely related to terrorists. 17 governments stopped paying the bill. We hope they'll continue to defund UNRWA. And here's the graphic they're tweeting out, and it's basically what they just said here. 10% of UNRWA's 12,000 Gaza staff are Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorists. This includes 23% of male UNRWA workers. Half of UNRWA staff have close relatives who are terror operatives. Okay. And just a reminder, here is, I have shown some of this stuff before, but here is some interviews being conducted with children at an UNRWA school in Gaza. So this is Mai Jingile, UNRWA student, Shafa, Jerusalem. And here she's saying, I'll give the translation. I'll just kill the sound here, guys. But it says, we have to make war to prove that we are stronger than the Jews. And this is a different student here, different student. He says, people love Palestine and they are ready to die for Palestine. I want to fight against them, the Jews, and defeat them in war. At school, they teach us that Al-Aqsa and all of Palestine is ours. It's a different student now. And another one, the Jews lie and say that their temple is under the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So that's the Temple Mount. That's the Jewish temple that was razed by the Romans during the Jewish expulsion there, where like previously it was Judea and Samaria, and they renamed it Palestine. The Romans did in order to break the Jewish connection to the land, and that the ruins of that Jewish temple are still there. And the Muslims, within 100 years, say, of Muhammad's death, they invaded and conquered and built mosques on the ruins of the temple. He says it was never there. It's still there. Another student, I hate the Jews. Another one, yes, they teach us that the Zionists are our enemy. And must fight them. They teach us the Jews are terrorists. This is another student. Another one, at school, they teach us about Jews. They teach us that they are bad people. They killed our young. Another one, they teach us in school that Jews are fickle, bad people. I am ready to stab a Jew and drive a car over them. Another one, I will fight. I will ram a car into them, the Jews. Another one, we have to constantly stab them. Drive over them and shoot them, the Jews. Stabbing and running over Jews brings dignity to Palestinians. This is another one. I'm going to run them over and stab them with knives. Right now, I'm prepared to be a suicide bomber. With Allah's help, I will fight for ISIS, the Islamic State. These are all different students. Yeah, so that's what's been going on in UN-funded schools, and UN-funded and managed. Okay, here's Quantum Flux. This is a pretty good one here. There's a good clip, and I'll read the post itself. One, UNRWA is a tool of jihad terror. Most of its employees are jihadists. $40 billion in quote-unquote aid went direct to leaders' pockets, tunnels, rockets, and hate indoctrination. UNRWA equals Hamas equals ISIS. Yeah, and that is the really sick part about it is the leaders of Hamas are rich, and they're worth billions, and they live in Qatar. So they're willing to sacrifice all of these people in Gaza to satiate their bloodlust. And okay, 2. UNRWA's primary goal is to develop terrorist states and spread jihad to Israel and beyond. It has adopted leftist ideological language as tactical camouflage. See that progressive lens that I'm talking about, that Marxist lens, the oppressor oppressed. Under UNRWA Hamas, all civic projects like hospitals and schools were militarized into weapons depots, rocket launchers, jihadist indoctrination centers, and 800 miles of terror tunnels. Terror industrial complex enriched itself from this aid. Hamas leaders pocketed over $10 billion. Billions more went to 40,000 plus. Your tax dollars are being used to pay all the October 7th terrorists. The Palestinian Authority spends millions annually to, quote, pay to slay, close quote, terrorist welfare. All jihadist groups share similar goals. The UN itself largely serves despots and jihadists. Its agenda is shaped by the most repressive regimes, including Iran, Russia, China, and radical Islamic forces. The 57 OIC Islamic nations control most of the world's oil reserves, worth over $100 trillion. They wield undue influence in many global institutions. Arab Islamic imperialism for 1400 years has used brutal physical and psychological tactics to try to ethnically cleanse the world. It was largely succeeded in the 99.7% of the Middle East it controls, or it has largely succeeded. Yeah, that's a good point too. They're just they expelled the Jews from in the 50s from Egypt, for example. And one thing you might notice, there's a trend that you can notice, is that whenever the Jews get expelled, the country ends up kind of falling to pot. So Israel is 0.3% of the Middle East, and the only part where minorities have freedom. For its security, they must remove corrupt UNRWA from its territories and take over its activities. All corrupt UN entities, including UNRWA, must be defunded and disbanded. A new platform for ethical global collaboration is desperately needed. Yeah, let's get out of the UN, go back to the League of Nations. And here is this clip. I think this is John Bolton. He was security advisor in the Trump administration, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, here we go.
Joining us now is former UN Ambassador John Bolton. Great to have you, Ambassador. Israel has long accused this UN relief agency of having ties to Hamas, but actually participating in the attack?
Well, it's shocking, but my guess is this is the tip of the iceberg. UNRWA has last time I looked, about 40,000 employees that operate mostly in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Of them, probably 99.5% are Palestinian. So the relationships between UNRWA and the Palestinian Authority on the West Bank and Hamas in Gaza are very, very extensive. Neither Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority are really governments as we understand them. Much of the delivery of services, let's just stay on Gaza here, is done by UNRWA: food, shelter, medicine, things like that, to hospitals, schools, families. There's not really much economic activity in Gaza. So in effect, UNRWA is an arm of the Palestinian Authority and Hamas. And when they say they found 12 UNRWA employees who participated in October the 7th, the next question is, how many UNRWA employees were witting of this attack coming? How many of them aided the attack in Gaza? There are also allegations that UNRWA vehicles and facilities were used. We need to know more about that. I think this could run very deep.
Yeah, I guess I'm really just stuck on the word participated. It's one thing to know the attack is coming and do nothing to stop it. It's another thing even to let them store their weapons in your living room, something we've heard over and over again, that there have been allegations that Hamas was storing weaponry in UN facilities. But to participate in the attack, do you think that means that Israel's actually alleging that members of the United Nations Relief Organization actually crossed the border into Israel that day?
It certainly sounds like it, and apparently much of this information comes from Israeli debriefing of Palestinians that they captured on or after October the 7th. It also goes to a very important question about who exactly is Hamas and who's just a civilian in Gaza. If you listen to the Hamas propaganda, you'd think that there were really very few Hamas fighters. Israel says they've killed about 8,000 out of 26,000 dead. But how many of the other people were aiders and abettors of Hamas? They knew about it. They They did civilian work that helped the Hamas fighters go across the border, that have helped Hamas in their battles in the tunnels. Hamas support in Gaza is really very deep among the population. Otherwise, where are the anti-Hamas demonstrations? Have you seen any of those?
Right.
So I think this really opens an enormous area for further research and investigation.
I guess I'm just really struck, and I know a lot of people, including the UN Secretary General and the State Department, according to its statements today, by the fact that Hamas did this attack knowing full well what the consequences would be, that Israel would unleash a lot of military action and bombing on Gaza as a result of these attacks. And they did these attacks and went back and hid in Gaza among civilians.
That's a good point. They knew exactly what would happen here, what the fallout would be, and they went ahead and did it anyway. They knew that this undue suffering would be unleashed. Well, it is due. They provided the impetus for it with the October 7th massacre, but they understood very well that it'd be the people in Gaza who end up suffering.
Knowing civilians would pay the price. They didn't give a heads up to the civilians. None of them knew, this attack is coming and the Israeli response is therefore coming. These United Nations Relief Agency workers, whose job it is to help feed these people and clothe these people and give medicine for these people, the fact that they would participate in such attack, knowing also full well that there would be this Israeli response, is incredible.
Right, and it's a deep wound to obviously the credibility of UNRWA, but to the United Nations as a whole, that has allowed this relationship between UNRWA and Hamas in the Gaza Strip and UNRWA and the Palestinian Authority to go well beyond simply the provision of humanitarian aid. And that's why I say, really, if we could get more insight into what that relationship was, there's every possibility that Hamas cooperation with UNRWA really is much more extensive than even this reveals. And there may be others. This is just 12 people that they found out about through questioning Hamas prisoners.
Right.
So who knows how many other UNRWA employees may have been involved directly crossing into Israel on October the 7th. That's still open.
Yep. And correction to what I said there previously, John Bolton was the American ambassador to the UN. So that's what's happening. And this is part of what we mean when we say that Hamas uses its own citizens as human shields, right? They want these civilian casualties. They encourage them to stay in areas where they know they have underground bunkers, and they would shoot at them while they were trying to flee with their white flags down the safe passage corridor provided by the ADF, just to keep them in these areas in order to maximize civilian casualties so they can use those bodies to get the propaganda win. Okay, so here is National Compost. And they say Canada will send another $40 million in aid for Gaza after pausing funding to UNRWA. Canada suspended funding to UNRWA in response to allegations that its staff played a role in the Hamas attack in Israel on October 7th. So thoughts on this? It's like, well, we what are we going to do now? Send the money straight to Hamas? This is probably one of those situations where we should have a military that could go in there and provide direct aid, so we know exactly where our money is going. We don't end up funding the bad guys, and we can measure success ourselves and not find out years later that they were using all of the aid we're sending them to fund terrorist activities. Okay, here it is. Canada is sending another $40 million in aid to organizations that are helping Palestinians in Gaza after pausing funding to the UN's relief agency in the region. The funding will go to groups including the World Food Program, UNICEF, and World Health Organization and International Committee of the Red Cross. Oh, I don't know about these NGOs. Canada suspended funding to UNRWA and the UN agency that supports Palestinians in Gaza in response to allegations that its staff played a role in the Hamas attack in Israel on October 7th. That came after an international outcry when the agency's director fired staff members suspected of being involved in the attack. The nature of their alleged involvement has not been made clear. Canada has committed $100 million to humanitarian aid in Gaza so far. So there you go. We're going to keep sending them money, just sending it through different proxies. Fingers crossed it doesn't go to funding more terror and massacres. Okay, here is Aviva Klampa, and she says, responding to a letter from the head of UNRWA assuring Congress that the UN conducts quarterly assessments, Representative Brian Mast says, I'll just play the clip for you guys. Here we go.
We reached out to UNRWA's Commissioner General, Mr. Philippe Lazzarini, requesting that he appear before this committee and the American people. In his response, which I will introduce for the record, while declining to appear publicly.
Stephanie was just saying foreign aid does not work. Yeah, I think that is the overwhelming conclusion that we're coming to here, is we can't just, send money off to these people and trust that they're going to do the right thing with it. We should be doing the right thing ourselves. And like I said, that's what we need things like militaries for. Like we have a DART team, presumably still, I guess, in the Canadian military disaster assistance and relief team. They had some great successes in places like Haiti previously. So that would be the kind of thing I think that we could send, a battalion with the DART team, that kind of thing over there to make sure that the job is done right. And, but we're not a serious country, guys. So instead we just shovel buckets of cash off to the world's dictators and hope that they're going to do the right thing with it.
Mr. Lazzarini goes on to tell us a number of things. That UNRWA is committed to
Peace Corps would be a good idea too. They have a Peace Corps in the United States. I think that'd be a good idea for Canada.
Neutrality, he said, that UNRWA conducts quarterly integrated assessments of their installations and to ensure adherence to neutrality. I guess these assessments must have somehow missed the missiles, the weapons, the anti-Semitic textbooks in the schools, and the terrorist tunnels being built underneath them. It must have missed that 10 to 15% of the employees are tied to Hamas. The letter goes on to tell us that UNRWA has a zero-tolerance policy with regard to staff neutrality, and yet we know that at least 1,200 UNRWA staffers have direct ties to Hamas and other terrorist organizations, and at least 12 staffers who were directly involved in the October 7 attacks. We reached out to UNRWA's Commissioner General.
So there you go. The Americans are onto this thing now. And David Collier is tweeting this out. He says, see that tiny red dot? That's Israel. You see the mass of green? That is the Arab world. Spoils of empire from the Islamic conquest. They want you to believe that that tiny dot of red is the ethnic cleansing, genocidal, colonial invader. They must think you are stupid. And that is part of the propaganda, the colonial invader, conqueror, that kind of thing. That's what they call the West. That's originates with Russian propaganda going back to the wake of the Second World War. I think the Chinese have really picked up on it. It seems like all of our adversaries have picked up on it. Here's Saudi Arabia, where Muhammad was born and lived his life. And he, the Banu Qurayza, was the tribe of Jews that he personally expelled and exterminated. He beheaded, I think, 700 Jewish men, and the way they determined the difference between the men and the boys was by examining them for pubic hair. And so there is this kind of Jew hatred that I think is unfortunately baked into the cake when it comes to a lot of the doctrine and the stories there. So it's a pretty intractable situation, but ideology matters, beliefs matter, I think, is the end of it here. And by the way, like this was all Roman territory previously, all the way up to Morocco, all in northern Africa, all that stuff. That was all Roman territory. They controlled access to the Mediterranean, and it was the collapse of the East Roman Empire caused by the Muslims coming out of Saudi Arabia that basically led to the centuries of oppression in the Holy Land of Christians and Jews living in dimnitude, which is second-class citizenship prescribed for them under Islamic doctrine. And in 1450, they finally crumbled the walls of Constantinople, which was the East Christian capital, the Orthodox. Greek Orthodox capital, and that is modern day Istanbul. So they just have this one little sliver here of non-Islamic territory, and they want you to believe that they are the ones who are engaged. They're somehow capable of committing a genocide in the Islamic world, but it just doesn't hold up to scrutiny, I'm afraid. Okay, here's CBC Watcher, and they said, when Justin didn't really want to stand up for the state of Israel, but needs to silence an MP who keeps speaking out against him, get him a position. So you see how this is all part of the progressive narrative. So this is Anthony Housefather, and he's tweeting out, really pleased to have been asked by the Prime Minister to serve as Parliamentary Secretary to Anita Anand, MP, at the Treasury Board. Anita is one of the smartest people I know and look forward to doing great work together. So he got shuffled out. This was Housefather, and he took a pretty pro-Israel stance. He broke with the party line, the Progressive Party line, that says that the West, all Western powers are genocidal warmongers and this kind of thing. And he stood with Israel, and now he's been shuffled out. So again, this just kind of reinforces my assessment that a lot of the stuff we're hearing around this, genocidal Israel stuff is progressive propaganda, and he said something that didn't fit the narrative, so he's out. And now to the U.S. border. Here is a clip, and Idea is saying, here we see a caravan of 4,000 to 8,000 illegal migrants. They are being scheduled for an arrival by our federal government. This is not quote unquote immigration. This is the state-sponsored invasion of the USA. Impeach the Biden administration for treason against America. And I've been presenting this kind of migration, mass immigration in particular, as a tactic to destabilize the West, probably originating with the Chinese Communist Party. And it's also another thing that happens in fourth turnings pretty consistently. Fourth turning being the crisis era that we're living through now, as the regular viewers will understand. But here is a shot of what's coming to the U.S. border. And there you go. So that is an incredible number of people on their way to implode the United States. And Sapreville is asking, where is that exactly? I mean, I guess I'm just sort of presuming that they're headed for the Texas border, but I'm not quite sure. And Kevin 84 was just saying civil procedure means Roman procedure. Our legal system is Roman. Yeah, so are our values. I hear Judeo-Christian values a lot, and I'm like, no, they're Roman values. There's nothing in Judaism or Christianity that says don't rape kids, but there is in Roman law. That was the adopted father, Marcus Aurelius, that well, as Marcus put it in his own meditations, he said he put an end to the pursuit of boys. So okay, and here is the border wall construction at Texas. Greg Abbott is tweeting out, and this guy is the governor of Texas. He says, border wall construction is ongoing along the Texas-Mexico border. We will continue to use every tool and strategy available to defend our southern border. And here's what that looks like. So if you're just listening, they're putting up these massive border fence kind of Trumpian walls. I wish there was a big golden T on them somewhere. So massive steel wall there. Stephanie is asking, who is rounding up all these people? Who pays for their cell phones? Who keeps them moving along? I have an idea. I think I'll say broadly, it's the world's dictators. But Maduro, I think, is probably pretty active in this as well. He's the leader of Venezuela down there. Well, the dictator of Venezuela, whatever. The Marxists came to power in Venezuela and, of course, crippled the country. created all kinds of desperation to the point where they're actually like eating their pets and zoo animals, that kind of thing. And yeah, I think that probably Maduro is participating in some kind of a broader plan, a broader effort on the part of the Marxists in particular, but the world's dictators more broadly. And also, like I've shown footage here where we see all kinds of Chinese men coming over together, like fighting aged males, as we call them in the military, FAMs, and you know, potential jihadis as well, people coming from North Africa and the Middle East, all kinds of stuff. Oscar Wee Wee is asking me, how long has this show been on? Today, we've been on for 1 hour and 56 minutes, but that's including the intro, which is about 10 minutes long. So, altogether, I think I've been doing this for a little over a year and a half now. All right. And here is the Border Patrol Union. So this is the standoff that's taking place between the federal government and the Texas government itself. Texas is going to defend the border. And of course, the Biden administration is saying, no, don't you do that. So the Biden administration is sending Border Patrol down there. And this is the Border Patrol Union itself. This is their official account with the gold check mark. And they say rank and file Border Patrol agents are not going to start arresting Texas National Guard members for following their lawful orders. That's fake news. Texas National Guard and rank and file Border Patrol agents work together and respect each other's jobs, period. If Texas National Guard members have lawful orders, then they have to carry out those orders. Texas National Guard members realize that the rank and file Border Patrol agents have their orders as well. Lawful orders, no matter how unpopular or distasteful amongst rank and file agents, must be followed. Unlawful orders, as determined by competent legal counsel and not what some outhouse lawyer behind the keyboard says, will not be followed. I like these guys. That's pretty based. Rank and file Border Patrol agents appreciate and respect what Texas has been doing to defend their state in the midst of this catastrophe that the Biden admin has unleashed on America. We want to be perfectly clear. There is no fight between rank and file Border Patrol agents and the Texas National Guard, Governor Abbott, or Texas DPS. What is that? Texas DPS. It may make flashy headlines, but it simply isn't true. So there's a little bit of political grandstanding and theater going on here, but it looks like the rank and file are all coming to the same conclusion. So, here is Alexa Lavoie, and Rebel News has arrived in Texas. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. I'm interested to see the coverage because I see these conflicting reports coming out. Like some people are posting stuff about these different areas on the border where, gates are open or the border wall ends. And they're saying this is all a big farce because look, like somebody could just walk over here and there's no law enforcement around and there's nothing stopping them and blah, blah, blah. But the thing that I find is pretty consistent throughout some of these clips is that nobody is actually walking over in those areas. So I would expect that the resources are going to the most problematic areas first, and they'll shore up those other vulnerabilities when they can. So rebels down there now, and as much as they may hate veterans, they do provide some pretty good coverage. So here we go.
What's going on, guys? Alexa Lavoie and I here in the state of Texas. Now, we actually just landed in San Antonio a few hours ago. We're about to hop in the car and head on over to Eagle Pass.
The city of Eagle Pass has seen an extreme influx of illegal migrants crossing the border over the last few years. Joe Biden and the federal government wants to remove the razor wire installed by Greg Abbott, which has been used to deter illegal immigration. The state of Texas is not backing down against the feds.
Now, like I said, we're gonna hop in the car. It's about a 3-hour drive to Eagle Pass. We'll see what awaits us when we get there. We're just gonna simply document and report what's happening at the southern border. Now, you can check out all of our coverage at texasborderreports.com. Through that same website. If you appreciate the coverage we're providing, consider making a donation and supporting our independent journalism. Unlike the mainstream media, we don't receive a cent of government funding. So if you appreciate the content that we're providing, consider making a donation through that website and stay up to date with all of our reports.
And you don't want to miss our exclusive reports.
Thanks, guys.
Right on. So good to see some Canadian coverage down there. We'll be keeping an eye on that. And here is another video. And this is Gunther Eagleman. And he says, Eddie Morales Jr. is an un-American piece of shit who has no business being a state representative in Texas. Repost, make him furious. So he confronts a Texas representative that goes down to the border. This is a 12-minute, 50-second long clip. I'm just going to show the first couple of minutes because I want you guys to see something here.
I'd like for you to post it. Okay, I'll post this. So people can actually see how naive and how you lack the basic fucking ability to hold Congress accountable, man.
Guys, honestly, if you want to really know what's going on, sir, you said you really want to like know what's going on and really find solutions, you need to read this book. This is exactly what's happening. This is weaponized migration. From Maduro and everybody else, you absolutely need to read this book.
What's the percentage of migrants that are crossing right now?
Right now, I don't know the actual, I wouldn't know that exact number.
Do you know what?
So that's what he's talking about. Maduro sending hordes of people up to the United States in an effort to destabilize it.
The percentage of migrants was in the 1900s when we had the highest number of migrants crossing?
I mean, well, so there was 10 million that have come through recently.
10 million. Do you know what the percentage is?
I'm not.
Okay, percentage of what? Percentage of people arriving at the border who actually got through, or like percentage relative to the American population? I think it's percentage who actually got through, but it's unclear. And the intention here is to distract away from the main point that this guy is making. So typical political answer here.
I don't know the percentage.
You gave me this book, right?
No, I just wanted you to see it. You can take a picture of it. No, it's actually a very, very good book. It was written by a socialist in 2006.
Okay. So there's anywhere from 12 to 14% of migrants that we had in the early 1900s. The highest number that we've ever had as a percentage of our population, right? Right now, we're having the same number. So frankly, it's not big.
No, that was from 1920 to 1950.
No, sir.
Yes, it was. It was from 1920 to 1950 through Ellis Island.
You didn't know the number. And
no, I don't know. I don't know this because you're asking for one little tiny statistic. You're doing a little straw man argument here.
How am I doing it?
Because no. Because you're already kind of coming off smug to me, which is kind of weird.
How is it being smug?
Because you're like, oh, so you don't know the.
Yeah, he's coming out pretty smug. Okay, but you get the idea. Like, I think this guy makes a pretty good point here, and he's tracking this issue the same way that I am. This is a strategy by the Marxists, by the world's authoritarians, to attempt to destabilize the West and the U.S. in particular. And I think I lost the chats from the Facebook group there, guys. So I can see, I'm looking at the Facebook group right now, and Christine is saying, big truck convoy to arrive February 2nd. Yeah, I was showing some of that here yesterday. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on this one for future developments. And here's a more based take. Here is Ron DeSanctimonious. I never thought that name was a good name. Trump is perhaps, slipping these days. And Ron, I think, is a pretty based politician. He's done a wonderful job sheltering Florida from a lot of the COVID tyranny, so on and so forth. And he was an open-minded guy at first. He's like, okay, I'll take the advice, but we'll see how it goes. And then, he ended up standing up to the federal government and reopening and all these things. So I think Ron is pretty based. And Ron is saying, can the federal government defy the law and force a state to allow a foreign invasion? James Madison didn't think so. So here is Ron. He's pretty cerebral, too. I like that about him. He's a smart guy. Well, he's a lawyer. He was a JAG in the U.S. military.
Biden is going after Texas, saying that they must remove fortifications from their border. They put wire, they put things to keep people out. Biden saying you got to take that down to let people come in illegally, which is just crazy. And I remarked that if the Constitution was originally understood to mean that a state could not protect itself against an invasion, that the federal government could force a state to allow an invasion, the Constitution would have never been ratified in the first place. Texas would have never joined the Union when it did. And if you look at Federalist 46, which Daniel Horowitz pointed out, James Madison talks about situations where federal encroachment can be mitigated by state action. So you have Texas here that's holding its ground. They have every right to fortify the border vis-a-vis an invasion, and that's Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution. So they're in the right. You also have a situation where liberal jurisdictions over many, many years have been sanctuary jurisdictions against enforcing federal immigration law. So you'll have somebody who's a criminal alien, they will not be given over to ICE, and they will deliberately act to frustrate the laws on the books, and somehow that's viewed as okay. You have Texas, who's acting to enforce the laws on the books, to ensure that they have a secure state and that we have a secure country. So all of this is just nonsense what Biden's doing. Texas has every right to stand its ground. In Florida, we've been sending people to help for many years now, because we understand it's not just a Texas issue, it's ultimately an American issue. And if we don't have sovereignty in this country, then we're not going to be a country anymore. So they have every right to hold their ground, to stay the course, and Florida will continue to be there, helping out every step of the way.
There you go. And a lot of the governors are joining. It's 26 now. 26 governors are joining with Abbott in support. And here's End Wokeness. Now, I'm not sure if I showed this one here before, but I'm going to show it here. Here's End Wokeness. Reporter, where are you from? A Middle Eastern illegal migrant. Soon you will know who I am. Believe me, you will see. Okay, check this guy out.
By the way, if you are smart enough, you will know who I am. But you are really not smart enough to know who I am. But soon you're going to know who I am. Very easy.
Wow, very easy. The entitlement.
No, believe me, I'm much better than that.
The entitlement, guys. Wow.
You will see soon. By the way.
I think it's more like smugness, a sense of superiority. He's saying the entitlement, but the response there was no, I'm much better than that. Believe me. So I remember seeing this and I was like, yeah, jihadi. And it looks like he has been identified. Here is Lauren Ellen, and she says, please search, quote, soon you will know my name to witness the last terrorist we will see coming in. We will see coming in. I think this is just before Texas closed the border, but it may be after. And in Arizona, just do something. This is on your watch. And she's tweeting out the graphic. So now Democrats want Islamic terrorists in our country. This is Mohsen Semedov. He is the leader of the Islamic terrorist group, Azerbaijan Islamic Party. He actually served 12 years after being convicted of trying to overthrow the government. He just arrived to start chaos here. And here are the pictures. This is the lower two pictures here are the Mohsen Semedov, and the picture on top here. This is well, it looks like a pretty close match to me. So yeah, that looks like a PID, positive identification, and yeah, that's what's happening at the southern border. And here is Glenda M, and she's tweeting out this little clip of Trudeau saying, we're in a housing crisis with our healthcare in shambles, yet Trudeau wants to continue flooding our country with newcomers. How anyone can be okay with this insanity is mind-blowing. Well, it's the same problem that we're having all over the West, and they're all following this agenda to destabilize the West on behalf of the world's dictators.
CMHC also says they expect a continued slowdown in housing starts starting and moving into 2024. So with that in mind, is your government willing to make cuts to any stream of immigration to soften demand for housing?
I think one of the most important things that we need to understand is that immigration is a source of opportunity, of growth, of economic advantage for Canada. But it's also important to make sure that, as we always have, we're doing it responsibly and at a pace that our cities, our municipalities, even our rural regions can absorb. And that's why we're constantly looking at some of the challenges that have been faced. For example, just a couple of weeks ago, our immigration minister made the announcement that because of the incredibly rapid expansion in international students, we were now going to make sure that institutions that are welcoming in more and more international students actually plan to create and build and ensure places where they're going to be able to stay, so that everyone is.
Sorry, I forgot the Trudeau warning. Anyway, yeah, placating people with platitudes, so they can continue to further this agenda. And here is the NCCM, that's the National Council of Canadian Muslims, and they say, we are horrified and shocked by the attack at the Edmonton City Hall yesterday. Any attack on public institutions is an attack on all of us and must not be tolerated. While more investigation needs to occur based on an alleged video manifesto, the attacker appears to have provided a plethora of reasons for his attack. but does seem to have been primarily motivated by an alt-right agenda involving concerns around municipal taxes, inflation, the cost of living, and hatred for multiculturalism, what experts are calling, quote, salad bar extremism, close quote, motivated by mental health concerns. We encourage Canadians to allow the investigation to continue before coming to any conclusions. We want to thank our first responders and security for their courage in dealing with this scary situation, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so yeah, mental health crisis. And as I'm always saying, when they say it's mental health, it's jihad. And when it's mental health, they say it's white supremacy. So here they are saying that this guy was motivated primarily by an alt-right agenda. Now, this was the shooting at Edmonton City Hall there late last week, I guess. And there were Molotov cocktails involved. There were, he had a rifle, he had Molotov cocktails. Apparently, city council was sitting at the time, but there were no casualties. And he was eventually talked down by a commissioner who knew him. He was also a commissioner. So yeah, what about this video manifesto? Well, here, first of all, is some security camera footage of the terror attack at Edmonton City Hall. This is Lee on Twitter and or X, whatever.
Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, so he seems to be just kind of firing wildly, not really taking aim or anything. And here is the manifesto that he left, or 19 seconds of it anyway. Sharion Collective says, Edmonton, Canada, terror attack. Palestinian protester firebomb City Hall, unleashes live rounds, peppered the building with gunfire. Bejeni Sarvar, charged with arson and firearms offenses. Well, now, so here he is.
Officials and anybody that has hands into this corruption, into this genocide that's going on in Gaza and throughout the world, anybody that is destabilizing other countries, hurting their community, should feel ashamed of themselves. And inshallah, we will rise against you guys and we'll put you on trial. Officials and anybody.
Okay, and here he is, 28-year-old Benzi Savara committed a terror attack at Edmonton City Hall yesterday, where he was assigned a security guard. He used a gun as well as homemade explosives. Thankfully, his aim sucked. Police are reviewing possible manifesto. What's happening to Canada? Well, it's like I said, we're being destabilized. And here is the shot of him here. It says a screenshot from a video posted to YouTube of Bezani Sarvar, who is accused of in a shooting at Edmonton City Hall Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024. Okay. Now there is a longer manifesto out there. That was just a clipped version. I'm kind of wishing I found the more clipped or the less clipped version of it. But one thing I found interesting about this is that he has been charged with arson and firearms offenses, and I saw a few articles written to that effect as well. Isn't this terrorism? Because if it's an attempt to coerce the population or intimidate the population for a political end, then that is terrorism under the Criminal Code of Canada. And he is saying, like, anybody involved in this, this or that, anybody that, like the taxes, all of this stuff. So he clearly has some political objectives here that are motivating him to commit this violence. So why is he only charged with arson and firearms offenses? Well, it's probably the same reason that the Danforth shooter was never declared to be terrorism. It's because our elites are working for our adversaries. Okay, and here's White Rabbit Warrior again, and he says, but there was a ban on handguns to illegal gun owners. How can the gun-related crime have possibly increased to its highest point ever? Well, armed societies are polite societies, and he's tweeting out this report from CTV News, nearly 9% increase in firearms crimes in Canada report. So CTV News is even reporting that there's a 9% increase. That is a marked increase. That's an incredible increase in firearms crimes in Canada. Now, mind you, like the number of gun deaths, I don't think actually overtakes the number of medical malpractice deaths or legal intervention deaths, as in, police actions, for that matter. It's pretty much statistically insignificant to begin with, but we got this increase, which is the opposite of what they said that their firearms confiscation was going to do. So what is the purpose of the confiscation? Well, it's to disarm the population and leave us vulnerable to this kind of authoritarian takeover or destabilization, for that matter. And it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work in a place like Texas, because their first ISIS attack on American soil was in Texas. That was the Garland shooting, where Pamela Geller was hosting a free speech event that involved a Draw Muhammad contest, and the FBI followed the gunman to the venue, got out of the car and videotaped him running up to it. But, it was Texas, and mass shootings don't really work there. So he got cut down on the spot. But yeah, this is the real purpose of all this gun legislation. It's to disarm us so that we're vulnerable. Here is Warmington. He says, this was a jihad-like terror attack in Canada that no one seems to know about. It's not every day that there are jihadist-inspired terror attacks in Canada related to Israel's war in Gaza that few seem to know about, but it happened, and the country is just fortunate no one was murdered in the process. The potential was definitely there. This was an all-out Gaza-inspired jihadist terror attack with gunfire and homemade bombs at Edmonton City Hall on Tuesday, and not a word out of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau about it so far. In fact, on X, he was talking about being at the women's professional hockey game in Ottawa. This was a terrifying incident. Security video shows a man entering Edmonton City Hall wearing a commissionaire's security jacket and carrying a long gun and appearing to shoot it. Police say he was, quote unquote, heavily armed. But no one seems to be talking about it much. It's almost like the potentially genocidal rampage was missed by the country, or even covered up or softened in terms of its seriousness. Certainly, when you compare the coverage to the reaction of media and politicians on the truckers, Freedom Convoy, or the arrests and trials of Tamara Litch, Chris Barber, and Pat King, or the Coots Alberta 4 conspiracy to commit murder case, it's a head scratcher how to understand this incident has been so far when you weigh and compare the evidence. What happened here was more serious than anything that happened with the trucker protest, but you will never know that judging from the reaction of the media and the political class. However, things are spun about what happened in Edmonton Tuesday. It was clearly as dark, as concerning as something can ever get. In addition to the horror of security video showing the armed man during his attack, a taped manifesto, which included Arabic greetings, was also discovered. This was one close call to being something nobody could even attempt to downplay. Let's review what we know. Quote, at approximately 10:18 a.m. on Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024, a male parked his vehicle in the City Hall underground parkade, then entered the building from the parkade access, close quote, Edmonton police say. Quote, once inside City Hall, he lit several handheld incendiary devices believed to be Molotov cocktails that caused one small fire outside the elevator. He then fired several rounds from a long gun into the ceiling, walls, and windows, close quote. Thankfully, quote, no one was struck by gunfire, close quote, and that a brave security officer knew what to do. Quote, the male then dropped the firearm on the floor and surrendered to a City Hall security commissioner who detained him until police arrived moments later, close quote. Police said, adding they, quote, and RCMP tactical teams then worked for several hours to secure and clear the building of any further threats, escorting out citizens who had been sheltered in place in various locations throughout City Hall, close quote. And he's got this clip in here as well.
Leaders, officials, and anybody that has...
It's the same one. The alleged terror suspect is Bizani Sarvar, 28, himself a Canadian Corps of Commissioner security guard, but not at City Hall. In an orange jumpsuit, he made his first appearance in court Thursday and has been remanded in custody until at least February 2nd, when a bail hearing is expected to commence. People have heard his voice in what is believed to be his home-made video. In the video, the man, who is believed to have come to Canada in 2012 from Afghanistan, is taped suggesting people fight against, quote, this corruption into this genocide that's going on Gaza and throughout the world, close quote, and, quote, inshallah, if God wills, in Arabic. We will rise against you guys and we will put you on trial, close quote. He also said, quote, salam alaikum. I can't say that right. It's assalam alaikum. Yeah. Salam alaikum. Brothers and sisters, before I do my mission, I want you to all know that I am not a psychopath. I do not believe in bloodshed, close quote, adding, quote, I am not one of these monsters that hurt children, that hurt innocents, and that promote wars all around the civilization of our society, close quote. He added, I'm just tired of seeing the tyranny and corruption taking over our society and our lives, close quote. Edmonton police say it is, quote, aware of the video circulating that may be related to this incident, close quote. You think? You think it may be? And investigators are reviewing this video, close quote, along with the RCMP and INSET, National Security Enforcement Teams. Quote, our officers are working closely with our national security partners on this investigation, close quote, said Chief Dale McPhee. Quote, I would like to reassure the public that we believe there is no further threat to public safety at this time. The investigation is in its early stages, and we will continue to update Edmontonians as it progresses, close quote. McPhee also said, quote, we believe this individual acted alone, close quote, and quote, believe there are no other accomplices, close quote. I believe that part. I believe that he acted alone, but that's about it. But how does anyone know for sure? We heard that same explanation in 2018 with the Danforth shooter, Faisal Hussein, who shot to death 2 young women in a July night and wounded 13 other people, despite having connections to a brother before the courts and having earlier traveled to Pakistan and sparing some in his bloody path. A conclusion was made that no one knew why he committed these heinous crimes, but there was no such carnage. There was no easy way to gloss it over. The video manifesto, and just on the Danforth shooter there, like his brother, his brother went into a coma because he actually came into contact with the car fentanyl that they had. They had several kilos of this stuff, and that's not fentanyl. It's not a recreational drug. It's an explosive. And I don't know if he ever came out of that coma. And it appears to be the case. Like they had weapons cached there. None of the family seemed to know anything about those weapons. It seems to be the case that when Faisal Hussein saw that his brother had gone into the coma, he decided to grab a pistol and do the best he could to achieve their aims, even though the plan had clearly gone awry with his brother going into the coma. So, he's very controlled in his marksmanship. When you watch the video, he's got a good shooting stance and all that stuff too. So it seems like it was something he was preparing for. The video manifesto in Edmonton reminds of the killer in the cenotaph slaying Corporal Nathan Cirillo, a terror event at Parliament Hill that saw the terrorist tape a video. Yes, again, that was Michael Z. Halfby-Bowe. And they tried to spin that one as mental health and drug addiction as well. And that's what they did with the Danforth shooter. The same spin doctor who was behind the hijab hoax was also the one who crafted the statement on the part of the family for the Danforth shooter to say that, he was all struggling and just tired of all the racism or something like that. And but it was mental health. That's how they tried to spin it. In this week's case, no one was hurt or killed, so there appears to be a little interest in it. But things could have turned out differently. What we do know is this was a terror attack at a hall of democracy that could have resulted in massive carnage, and very few people are even talking about it. B'nai B'rith Canada says they are, quote, deeply troubled, close quote, after learning of the, quote, terrifying events that unfolded in Edmonton, close quote. Quote, we fear that the perpetrators' reference to the Israel-Hamas conflict in their manifesto will only lead to the further incitement against Canadian Jews in the midst of an unprecedented surge in anti-Semitic incidents, close quote, Marty York of B'nai B'rith Canada said. So, yeah, that's a pretty good assessment, I think, from Toronto Sun there. Warmington, well done, Joe Warmington. Not bad at all. I'm glad some people in the mainstream are calling this out. Oh, here we go. Rebel News Canada. Feds knew of Chinese meddling in WeChat, so don't forget who that man behind the curtain is, folks. I got China. My money's on China. I got them pegged as being the center of gravity in all this, not to downplay the role that Russia plays as well. Yeah, I think that what we're going through right now is essentially a Maoist cultural revolution. And a lot of the propaganda we receive around things like, say, the so-called opium wars, which were not about opium in China. It was about Britain being treated as an equal power. And we teach that stuff in our schools. We teach their propaganda in our schools. And okay, so Rebel News says, Global Affairs Canada refrained from taking action on foreign interference allegations against China after WeChat, a Chinese social media platform, did not respond to officials. So I'll take a quick peek at this. They're usually pretty short articles, but I'm running along today, guys. So I don't want to keep you guys too long. And yeah, here it is. June 12th, federal memo contends the Chinese agents targeted diaspora populations in Canada through WeChat. It uncovered unusual activity to influence votes in ridings. And it says, Global Affairs Canada refrained from taking action on foreign interference allegations against China after WeChat, a Chinese social media platform, did not respond to officials. Quote, China shows growing sophistication in carrying out online information campaigns to influence audiences in Canada, close quote, according to a June 12th department memo to a deputy minister. It contends that Chinese agents target diaspora populations through China-based platforms like WeChat. Quote, there are many people in Canada who are on an ongoing basis being targeted by foreign interference, and it was not my job to inform them, close quote, testified Rob Stewart, the recipient of the memo and former deputy minister of public safety. Oh, yeah, not my job, eh? He previously served as a federal monitor for alleged election interference in 2021. Quote, there are processes and ways of doing so, close quote, said the deputy minister. Policy over people, processes over people, protocol over people. Quote, in this instance, I was not tracking what other people were doing, close quote. So you didn't do your due diligence. Okay. Quote, we were informed of questionable activity in various writings, close quote, clarified Stewart. The memo uncovered, quote, unusual activity on WeChat that constitutes disinformation and attempts by various parties to influence votes in ridings, close quote. However, it took no action since WeChat is owned by Tencent Holdings Limited, a media corporation headquartered in Shenzhen. Tencent does not publicly disclose suspected incidents of foreign interference, reported Blacklock's reporter. The deputy minister testified that the Canadian Security Intelligence Services, CSIS, twice informed him that Chinese agents used WeChat to target Conservative MP Michael Chong. Global People magazine, a publication by China's official news outlet, and People's Daily Press shared disinformation against Chong, reported Rebel News. The campaign targeted the outspoken China critic originated from the outlet's WeChat channels, but the federal government never informed Chong in advance. While Global Affairs Canada said it is, quote, highly probable, close quote, China orchestrated the operation, given the coordination, timing, and content of the social media posts, CSIS memos obtained by the Bureau confirmed China, quote unquote, weaponized the application during the 2021 election. Former Conservative MP Kenny Chiu, also a victim of the coordinated disinformation campaign by Beijing, introduced Bill C-282 in 2021 to establish a foreign influence registry. However, he lost his re-election that year, surprise, claiming to be the target of election interference himself. There is some weight to those claims, as first reported by Rebel. WeChat posts show a coordinated campaign calling on all Chinese Canadians to oppose and vote against Conservative MP Kenny Chiu due to the introduction of Bill C-282, claiming the bill will, quote, catch all of our pro-China associations, close quote. And that is something that's in the mosaic effect as well. These pro-China associations, they go right down to the municipal level. They're like community organizations and stuff like that. They've got their tentacles in really deep. No such registration exists in Canada, permitting the outlets to operate freely without disclosing their activities. Stewart testified that he received numerous security memos, quote, bundled into a binder. Every couple of days, you get a binder, close quote, he said. Quote, you flip through the binder and you try to detect trends or issues of interest, close quote. Quote, how thick is that binder, close quote, asked Liberal MP Mark Garrettson. Quote, a couple of inches, close quote, replied Stewart. Disclosure of WeChat memo coincides with the commencement of the public inquiry into foreign interference, which is going to be a farce. The Conservatives can't even get standing for cross-examination purposes. So, yeah, it's a pretty sticky intractable situation we got ourselves into with China. Well, not us, but our political leadership, particularly Justin Trudeau. Now, I do understand that it goes back further than that, but this guy is just in the tank for China and has been since he was a candidate, right? Rebel News Canada, again, Trudeau Liberals have a veto on what can be released to public during Foreign Interference Commission. Rebel News reporter Kraychik joined Ezra Levant to discuss day one on the Foreign Interference Commission in Ottawa. Yeah, okay. So that's a video. I'm going to skip over that one in the interest of time here, guys. But yeah, the Liberals get to veto what's released to the public as a result of this Foreign Interference Commission. That's not the fully open and transparent public inquiry that certainly I was calling for as a potential solution to all of this. I mean, and that's just the start. They're clearly trying to tap dance away from this while they change election laws to give us 3 days to cast votes and mail-in voting, so they can do what they did in the 2020 election down in the United States, and we'll have unending CCP Manchurian candidates until the end of time. And on the bright side, okay, I'm going to wrap it up here shortly, guys. But on the bright side, here is what's going on over in Europe. This is outside Macron's beach house. The French farmers are awesome, which is great to see because they did that whole internet blackout where they just shut the internet right off during the massive protests turning into riots there a couple of months ago. So it's nice to see that they're still fighting hard over there. So here we go. Just a massive line of tractors on the beach by Macron's house. Glorious. Okay, and here's a quick 10-minute or 10-second clip. The siege of Paris has begun. Check it out. All one side of the highway, all tractors, a few trucks in there, bumper to bumper. So that's Paris, not Berlin. And here is French farmers are angry. So, and this is a pretty cool clip here.
Discontent.
What is going on with it? Here we go. Okay.
In France, Romania, Germany, the Netherlands, and Austria, farmers are angry. But where does this discontent come from and why is it spreading in Europe? From roadblocks to tractor parades, farmers across the continent are demonstrating and calling on their governments for help. The reasons behind their anger vary from country to country. French farmers say they don't earn enough to make a living and are overwhelmed by regulatory standards. Above all, they're calling for simpler administrative measures, no new pesticide bans, and an end to increasing diesel prices for tractors. In Germany, farmers are protesting against increasing environmental controls, rising production costs, and soaring administrative pressure. In the Netherlands, Romania, and Austria, farmers are protesting. In France, Romania, Germany.
All right. So signs of hope, especially over there in Europe right now. And, you know, the governors are banded together down in the United States, too. So the world over, I think people have had it with the boomers. Let me see. Leroy, I was just reading some of your comments over there on Rumble. And listen, man, I understand where you're coming from. I was just pointing out that the prohibitions on certain things, certain values, are more properly rooted in Roman values, I think, more directly than they are a lot of the religions that have been around throughout the ages of the Roman Empire and beyond. So, all right. The Epoch Times is saying, after court win in Emergencies Act, challengers say they'll sue the feds and banks. I submitted my email to these guys already. I'm like, can I join? I'm not sure yet. I got to kind of fill out some stuff, but my rights were violated. You know, I got beat up and thrown in jail while I was there at the trucker convoy. Here's Noah Chartier. He says, several challengers to the Emergencies Act say they're prepared to sue the government officials and financial institutions after the federal court's recent declaration that the invocation of the act was not justified. Military veteran Eddie Cornell, police veteran Vincent Geerses, and Alberta contractor Jeremy Joss said in a January 29th statement on X that they will sue, quote, those in government, the financial institutions who froze people's bank accounts, and the police officers who beat up and injured innocent Canadians, close quote. The move comes after Justice. Now, I didn't get injured. That's kind of the question that I have, I guess. Is it enough that I was beat up? The move comes after Justice Richard Mosley ruled in their case on January 23rd and concluded that, quote, there was no national emergency justifying the invocation of the Emergencies Act, and the decision to do so was therefore unreasonable and ultra vires beyond legal authority, close quote. The Liberal government invoked the act on in February 2022, saying it was necessary in order to clear cross-country protests and border blockades calling for the lifting of COVID-19 restrictions. Justice Mosley said that measures implemented under the act, such as limiting public gatherings and freezing bank accounts, had respectively breached Sections 2 and 8 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Section 2 in part refers to freedom of expression, and Section 8 protects against unreasonable search and seizure. The court found that Mr. Cornell and Mr. Gerses had standing, but rejected the application for review from Mr. Jost, Kristen Nagel, and Canadian Frontline Nurses, and pastor and military veteran Harold Ristow. Harold Ristow is our V4F Padre too, by the way. So there's Eddie Cornell, one of our founders, and Harold Ristow is the Padre as well. So Mr. Cornell and Mr. Gerses, quote, were directly affected by the emergency measures in that their accounts were frozen, close quote, the court said, whereas others did not experience this consequence. After the government declared a public order emergency on February 14th, 2022, the RCMP provided a list of entities to financial institutions and asked them to freeze their accounts. Financial institutions were also told to use their own risk detection methods to freeze the accounts of other entities deemed to be involved in the protests. Then Deputy Finance Minister Michael Sabia testified at the Public Order Emergencies Commission in late 2022 that 257 accounts were frozen based on the RCMP list and 23 based on the financial institution's own determinations. The men launched the fresh lawsuit following the January 23rd federal court ruling, say, quote, we are asking all Canadians who have been affected as a result of the Emergencies Act invocation to join us in this historic lawsuit, close quote. They've established an initiative called, quote, the Accountability Project to fundraise for their case. Their initial statement does not indicate which officials will be sued by the group and whether they are launching a class action lawsuit. Mr. Cornell told the Epoch Times that details are currently being worked on. Intending to join the lawsuit is wounded Afghan veteran Chris Deering, who testified at the POIC in November 2022 that he was beaten by police when the Freedom Convoy protest was being cleared in Ottawa. And I was right there. You can see it in some of the footage there. That was when my heart, my stomach really sank when I saw that. It was like, oh damn, like we're not the same country we once were. That's for damn sure. The Liberal government says it will appeal Justice Mosley's decision. Quote, we respect very much Canada's independent judiciary, close quote, said Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland on January 23rd in reaction to the ruling. Quote, however, we do not agree with this decision. Yeah. So they're gonna try and tap dance this in a way, but it has teeth, guys. It's not like the Public Orders Emergency Commission. This actually has teeth. We got a federal court ruling on this, and we're going to be standing on that to go after the lawsuit. Okay, just a quick reminder here. I'm going to plug for the V4F First Annual Salty Shaker Barbecue Camping Fun Presentations Fundraising. Invited V4F Atlantic members, family, special guests. Is it just Atlantic, guys, or can the guys come in from because people will be traveling around at that time of year. It's happening in August August 2022. That's a great time to come to Nova Scotia for any of you V4F guys that are further out west in or maybe stuck in Ontario, something like that. Where outside Truro to be announced. Members, please email to RSVP Atlantic@veteransforfreedom.ca. And I like how they got the little boomer town over here. That's pretty great. Look at this. They got the sign that says Boomer Town in 100 kilometers, and it's the Legion sign is right underneath it. So yeah, well done, guys. Well done. Okay, and go to the Veterans for Freedom website, and you can sign up to give us a donation, help us keep the lights on, or donate to our support fund. And the intent of this is to help Canadians who are suffering under this tyranny. Candidates for this month, everybody gets to vote. Anybody who donates gets to vote on where the pool of donations goes. Helen Gruce, who should need no introduction around here. She's currently being persecuted by Ottawa Police Services for trying to protect babies during the early vaccine rollout. And Kimberly Newdorf she's been fined $37,000 plus costs for organizing 2 peaceful demonstrations against provincial government-imposed restrictions on constitutionally enshrined rights and freedoms in 2020. And Lisa Robinson is a Pickering City Councillor who has been sanctioned 90 days wages for standing up for her constituents, and she's the sole provider of her child. And, this puts her in a very hard spot, of course. So those are our candidates, all female cast this month. So feel free to donate and get your vote into where those donations go. You'll also have the option to send 10% of your donation this month to Operation Feed, which is formerly Operation Feed St. John, and it's a local-based nonprofit organization fighting to win the war on hunger while providing support for our local veterans and emergency workers. So all kinds of great causes there, guys. Just use one of these buttons to sign up for a monthly subscription. And if you don't want to use your credit card, then you can send us an e-transfer to fund@veteransforfreedom.ca. That's fund@veterans4freedom.ca. And auto deposit enabled. But if you're not able to do that, then please use the password all caps fund 4 all caps freedom, and we'll make sure that gets off to a worthy cause. Okay, that brings us all the way back around to Catherine the Great, and she says, "Power without a nation's confidence is nothing." I wish Trudeau, actually respected women, great women. I don't think that's what he's all about, though, is it? He's more about using them as political props. But anyway, words of wisdom from Catherine the Great. And they don't call her the Great for nothing. So, all right, that's it for me today, guys. I've been pretty long lately. There's just so much going on around here. And I'll go ahead and throw to a few comments here before I sign off. And Sapper Bill is saying, all the best, Jeff. Another great show. Until tomorrow, triple slashy. Yeah, triple slashy right back at you, brother. I appreciate that. I hope you guys like the new time slot. I'm not really noticing any kind of a difference in the viewership or anything like that, but let me know. Feel free to leave your comments here. If you don't like it, let me know. If you like it, let me know, and I'll adjust accordingly. And Peace Man's got a few, let's see. He says, the foreign interference inquiry is a purposeful distraction on the real inquiry that is inevitable. Well, yeah, it's another one of these political, it's gamesmanship. It's political gamesmanship. And I believe there's even some connection there where the judge, I think, was a lawyer for the firm that got the non-disclosure agreement in place with the 15-year-old girl for Trudeau after he left his teaching job in the middle of the semester. Yeah, that sounds about right. So, and if the Conservatives don't have standing, if the opposition doesn't have standing to cross-examine, then what are we doing? Like it's all a dog and pony show again. And Sharon Donner is saying, I'm in total awe of your history knowledge and quick mind. Oh, thank you very much. I am a late learner. There is much time to make up for, and my mind cannot hold it all. Respect to you. Okay. Yeah, I have a lot of trouble with that myself. I'm just kind of doing the best I can with my squishy mammalian brain myself, but I do appreciate the positive feedback. So, and April says, appreciate the new time slot as I don't like to miss the Levine show in the AM. That was the whole rationale, really, is I was just like, we're all on the same team here, guys. So maybe I can adjust a little bit here. Jason actually went on an hour before I did. I said early bird gets the worm. So maybe the thing to do is to move it to the noon hour. So we're getting to a place of collaboration instead of competing, which is so important in the freedom movement right now. So yeah, that is but yeah, okay, great. Good to know that that much is being achieved anyway. And let me see now. I got to go over to Facebook. I lost the feed from the Veterans for Freedom group, but I can go over to the Facebook group here, and I see Colleen is saying, of course, no violence. Okay. I'm not advocating for that. Lawful civic action is what we advocate for here at Veterans for Freedom. Cora says, thanks again for everything you do, Jeff. Have a great day, everyone. And don't forget to point and laugh at those wearing breathing barriers. Yeah. It sounds good to me. That is the strategy, right? Tyrants can't take the mockery. They don't like humor, not one little bit. They can't stand to be mocked. And the tyrannical mind doesn't understand the ironic mind and sees it always as a threat. And Patricia's saying, have a great day, all. Great show. Jeff Evelyn says, I agree with April. So much stuff being covered. Good not to overlap. Yeah, I tend to think so too. I think Jason's doing some great work over there. I was on his show there last week and I had a lot of fun with him. So hopefully, we can collaborate more in the future. and try not to step on each other's, get in each other's way, right? All right, guys, that's it from me today. Till next time, stay frosty and stay safe out there.
Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs.